Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. We will be starting shortly in 5 minutes.
All right.
Please bear with us.
Sure.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Just picking up with the mic. Am I audible?
yes, you are.
Okay.
Hello, Sagar. Nati, am I here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay, thanks.
is a integral part of Avartan, NITIE's annual student activity initiative that encompasses business, culture, and sport. Established in commemorate the Golden Jubilee year of NITIE, the festival finds its structure placement always considered environment, safety, and sustainability as a key aspect for industrial Thank you, ma'am, for the kind introduction. We will now be inviting our panel of speakers one by one. Now, we have Anuj Chaudhary, ma'am, the founder and CEO of SustainPlus. Ma'am is a climate action and sustainability expert who has an exhaustive understanding of the mechanism to create real business value from socially and environmentally responsible business strategies. She has received several awards and recognitions for her contribution towards climate action and responsible business practices, including the prestigious Most Influential Sustainability Leader of India Global CSR Leadership Award, and has also served as an advisor to various international organizations. Welcome to Envision 2021, ma'am. I now invite you, Anu ma'am, to share your insightful thoughts on ESG frameworks.
So, great to be speaking generation of ESG experts and climate warriors, if I may say so. I would like to share a presentation. So if it's okay, I'll just share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I'm going to cover some very basic fundamentals of ESG because from my experience over the last 21 years, I've seen that it has evolved very significantly. The definition of ESG itself has evolved, and also what it means, its significance for various stakeholders, across the globe and across the market. So I'd like to just cover something about that, and then what are the drivers? Why do we see ESG has suddenly become a buzzword? So jumping straight into that. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. The history and evolution of ESG, as you can see here, in the 1980s, it was more related to environment, health, and safety. Health and safety, especially because with the manufacturing companies or chemical or pharma companies, it was most important that they have least number of incidents in the plant. And that was the very basic, criteria for an organization to define its performance in EHS, and that is where it stopped, literally. Then it just moved on to some, certifications such as ISO 9001, which is a quality management system, or ISO 14001, which is an environment management system, and that again was limited more to documentation. Not so much on-ground implementation. And somehow it always stayed with the key people who were responsible. So there used to be a management representative, there still is, when it comes to these certifications, and that person would be solely responsible for maintaining these certifications. But the other departments wouldn't really know what this person is responsible for and what is it that they need to do to ensure that the company is performing well in terms of its environment or health and safety parameters. And then we moved on to the 1990s when sustainability sort of started coming into the key corporate terminology, but was still not understood really, and it still remained with a set of people, perhaps in the organization, maybe just one person, just for going and speaking on various platforms and just keeping it there. Then we had our CSR laws, and things started moving towards a social direction where corporates started realizing that they cannot operate in a silo and that they need to take care of the communities around them, and some basic environmental impacts as well. And so things were still seen as philanthropic pretty much. But corporates did start realizing, companies and governments even started realizing that there has to be some linkage there with the social and environmental impact of a company. And now here we are, from since 2018, ESG started picking up, and it sort of there was a certain section of investors and financial institutions which started talking about ESG and said that you must include this in your business decisions, in your capex and opex decisions. And then came COVID, and suddenly ESG has become a buzzword. And why is that? Because simply everyone around the world has realized that you cannot operate as an entity, as an independent entity alone, where you are not bothered about your impact on the environment or society, and vice versa. So that is pretty much what ESG means. It's the impact of social and environmental trends on companies and investments, and vice versa, the impact of companies on social and environmental challenges. So this is where we are right now. Many companies have, matured to a level where they have at least started aligning their, I would say, they have started baselining, have started looking at the impacts they are having on environment and society, and also trying to maximize the positive and minimize the negative impact. They have also started monitoring how the external environment is impacting their business, and we will be talking more about it, in a short while. So basically, we have transitioned from an earlier notion of ESG being a philanthropic effort by the companies to now this becoming one of the major deciding factors. It has impact on how companies are run, the business model and strategy of the company, the assets they own, how much money they are making, and the investment performance. So any investor in today's time wants to know how resilient is a company, how well prepared is a company to deal with any kind of natural disasters or any kind of business risks or climatic impacts that could affect the company's business in any way. So we have now, and I'm very glad to say this, having spent 21 years in this domain, I now see that when we talk to the sustainability heads of companies, they are not the only ones dealing with it. They have, the companies, the corporates, the CEOs and MDs of companies have realized that just giving the responsibility to the chief sustainability officer would not be enough unless you actually cooperate with him or her to implement this across the board, across all departments. And ESG is something that impacts everything. It's your administration, procurement. So supply chain is a very important aspect of ESG. Planning, design, construction, maintenance, operations, every single department within a company has a role to play when it comes to the ESG performance. And we are also now seeing companies, moving from the stage of denial to the stage of transformation. I would say still, it's less than 5% of the companies which are perhaps, somewhere close to here in the transformative stage. But still, there is a change happening, and that's a very welcome change. We see that, earlier where people were not even willing to admit that there is any relation between business and environment or climate change. Now we are at a stage where we can't deny that anymore. We are in fact at a stage where these linkages are making so much more sense to the business strategists. So they know that their profits are directly linked to their brand value, to their performance in their in other aspects, also in ESG aspects as well. And I will show you some examples of how companies have gained tremendously in the last few years, based on this improving performance in ESG. So what you see is WEF in 2021 report this year, they identified the long-term risk outlook and the likelihood of top 10 risks that could impact any company. And what you see here is that 6 out of 10 risks are related to environment. So you have extreme weather, you have climate action failure, natural disaster, you have biodiversity loss, human-made environmental disasters, and water crisis. So you see that when you know that the top 10 risks facing the globe, facing the world these days, the top 6 are related to environment, you cannot close your eyes to that anymore. So it's also very it's basic common sense now, I would say. Every layman, even if you're not working in the sustainability field, it has nothing to do with your business, you would still know that the natural disasters over the last few years have increased in frequency significantly. Look at the 2021 Houston extreme cold, $180 billion of damages. The European heat wave that caused about 1,500 deaths in France in 2019. Severe drought and forest fires in Australia last year. 2017 flooding in China, so many flooding incidents in India. So I mean, you're seeing this across the globe. And now one thing which is very evident is that no country, whether rich or poor, is safe from climate change. You cannot say that we have enough money to deal with it. Money alone cannot save you. It's not the only safeguard you need to have. There are several other things that you need to do in order to make yourself resilient to these natural disasters. What are the emerging market drivers for ESG? Well, the global expectations are changing. Your investors, financial institutions. So one thing which is very interesting, that I have observed over the last couple of years is that the investors are, it's not just a small set of investors anymore who are called impact investors or ESG investors who are looking into these aspects. Now, every big customer across the globe, every big financial institution is asking companies to share their ESG performance, is asking them to share their risk and opportunity framework, in terms of ESG, to ensure that the company has done enough groundwork to, first of all, assess the risk and the opportunities within the market, and they have also prepared themselves for any upcoming calamity. So now, and that's why they will just put their money in companies which are prepared for this. Also, the policy landscape is evolving very, very rapidly, simply because the regulatory framework is changing. You have, even in India, we are seeing that overnight there are new regulations which are implemented. Companies need to be prepared for it. At the UN level, policies are changing every day. We don't know what's going to come at COP26 this year. And then the market and technology changes. We see that, more and more cleaner technologies are coming into the market, which do not anymore demand a very high investment. And hence, it makes so much sense for the companies to now go ahead and explore these solutions, which not only help them with becoming climate positive or carbon neutral, or reduce their environmental impact, but also reduce the costs that they are putting into it, become more resource optimized in the process. So it's a win-win for everyone. Another set of market drivers, of course, as I was talking about earlier, COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. And if you look at supply chain, that was severely impacted during COVID. So what companies have also realized now is that it's very important to ensure that you have a steady chain. You depend on local supply chains as much as possible, and you ensure that you have enough diversified set of suppliers or vendors, so that you're not dependent on any one entity, which could completely disrupt your business in a situation like COVID. Then, adapting to physical climate risk, that's very, very important now. What would you do if, there's a flood in a location where your office is or where your manufacturing plant is? What would you do if there is a drought condition and you don't get enough water for your manufacturing process? So, there are so many such risks that you need to anticipate and then be prepared for it. All the more important why you need to become more resource optimized. So these are basic business survival is the reason, is the main driver for ESG to have become such a buzzword now. So what you see here on this slide is how different stakeholders are so dependent now on ESG parameters or standards. And what you see here in the center is the most popular standards we have these days, in pertaining to ESG. You have TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. You have SASB, CDP, Dow Jones, DJSI, GRI, and several others. But yeah, these are the most popular ones. And we see that financial regulators are now increasingly asking their stakeholders to comply with these standards, start reporting or start disclosing as per these standards, lenders, corporates, investors. So all of them are giving a lot of importance to this, because there is some structure to it. It defines the parameters that a company must be looking into in order to build their framework on ESG, in order to know what is it that is relevant for them. Now, what we must note here is that not a single standard here is applicable to all the companies, or is taking care of all the requirements for a company. Hence, it may be necessary for a company to judge very carefully as to what combination of standards should they be going for. And that depends largely on the sector that they are operating in, or the geographies they're operating in. And the expectations of their stakeholders. Sometimes a large customer in Europe may ask you to align yourself with TCFD, and then that may become a top priority for you. But then you may want to combine that with SASB as well, because that takes care of quite a few indicators also. So I will just quickly run through this. I don't want to take too much time, but just to show you, some basic elements of the framework. So no matter which ESG framework or standard we pick, one thing which is very generic to all of them is that there has to be a corporate purpose beyond profits, and you have to define that purpose for yourself. What is it that the company's goals are? And that's a very important exercise, because that's how you would put your roadmap or action plan in place. It's very important to do a scenario planning of what the impact would be on your business if the external environment were to change. Like, for example, if there was a 2-degree rise in temperature versus a 1.5-degree rise in temperature, or versus a 4-degree rise in temperature, a global temperature. And how would your business suffer in that case? And hence, put a value to that and have an action plan in place depending on the magnitude of that risk. Translating your risks into opportunities. Now, that's very, very important. Say, for example, if a company was to go for a carbon neutrality target today, that would turn out to be a huge opportunity for the company as compared to doing it 5 years down the line when this becomes a regulatory requirement. Because at that point in time, it would be much more expensive. It would be perhaps 50 times more expensive for you to become carbon neutral. You would have already paid a lot of penalty on not being proactive enough. You would find that the resources that you're depending on are much more expensive, and also your business is much more dependent and less flexible on becoming more optimized in terms of its resource requirement. This I won't spend too much time on this, but this basically just means basic PDC cycle, your plan, do, check, act. If you do that in time, your company can mitigate the risk. It can help you identify new markets, new customers. You could be the privileged ones. If say, for example, if you're part of a supply chain for a large company which is giving a lot of importance to ESG performance, you would be the preferred vendor for them, and hence that's a huge market gain for you. You can anticipate your risks well in advance and be prepared for it. You can adapt to newer regulations, and you can also engage with your employees, your value chain, to ensure that it's not just you, as a top management or as the CSO of a company doing this, or as part of a sustainability team, taking care of this, but rather you have everybody else on board, and hence make it an organizational level objective rather than just a person-driven objective. Could someone please tell me how much time I have? Should I just wind up in 2 minutes, or is it okay to take 5 minutes?
Ma'am, it's okay. You can wind up in 2 minutes if that's possible. Okay, sure. So, I will just mention some examples of how do you differentiate between a strong framework versus a weak ESG performance of a company. So, if you have reduced supply chain disruptions, so these are some of the indicators, by which even without engaging an ESG expert, you can guess for yourself how good your company is performing in terms of ESG. So, you have reduced probability of stranded assets due to climate change. You have increased natural resource stewardship, basically meaning that you're more resource optimized and you're reducing your costs constantly. And you identify new markets, customer bases. Now, coming to bad examples, there are too many losses due to supply disruption. You incur fines, penalties, and sunk assets. Your costs are increasing, especially due to the raw material you are dependent on from natural resources. You have missed market opportunities, enhanced crisis management and business continuity capabilities. You have a lot of monetary losses due to employee turnover and lowered productivity, lost out on essential talent. So these are the indicators that you're not doing perhaps very well on your governance and social aspects. So there are indicators under environment, social, and governance, and which you must be very careful of and you must monitor on a regular basis. Now, I will not go through each of these ESG frameworks in detail, but these are some of the standards and frameworks we have right now. And as I said before, we need to ensure that we pick the right combination for us. It would be ideal to follow all of them, but then it's not always possible. So, hence it's best to pick 2 or 3 maximum in your strategy with. SBTi, science-based targets. So that really helps you pick achievable yet ambitious targets. It's easy to just announce that we will be carbon neutral by 2030, but is that even possible for a company like yours? That is something that SBTi will help you answer. It will ensure that you are picking up targets that your stakeholders would appreciate you for.
that they are ambitious enough, but at the same time, they are practical for you as an organization. Yeah. So here are some of the case studies of how companies have suffered in the past because of lack of good ESG frameworks or good governance in place. Look at the example of Volkswagen. They had to face huge penalties for rigging 11 million diesel vehicles to pass emission tests. BP, Cambridge. And here you have examples of companies which have been doing very well in their ESG, and Havells India and Godrej Consumer Products are among the 12 Indian companies that are going to be included in the DJSI 2020, used for assessing ESG performances. So they have set a huge benchmark for other companies to follow, which is great. What you see here is how in the previous slide, I'd shown you how HUL, Godrej are doing so well in their ESG performance. And here is a clear linkage with their business results. So it speaks for itself. HUL is India's largest FMCG company and has recorded the highest sales volumes in the industry and has the highest EPS in the FMCG sector. Similar is the case for Godrej as well. Yeah, so I'll wind up here. Thank you so much for your patience, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your comprehensive insights on ESG frameworks as a way forward to a regenerative post-COVID world and the emerging market drivers. We could not have asked for a more wonderful start to our event. Our next panelist is Tejaswini Kamat, ma'am, the Vice President of ESG and Impact at EverSource Capital. Ma'am heads the ESG and Impact function at India's climate-focused fund, Green Growth Equity Fund, which is launched by NIIF and FCDO in 2018 and managed by EverSource Capital. The fund focuses on investment for decarbonization of the energy value chain and resource efficiency in India. She is passionate EHS and sustainability professional with 15 years of global experience with expertise in ESG, impact, human rights, gender mainstreaming, EHS compliance, and sustainable supply chain. She's involved with NITIE since 2015. Welcome to Envision 2021, ma'am. I now invite you, Tejaswini ma'am, to share your key insights on ESG frameworks.
Thank you for that introduction, Nikita, and thanks, NITIE. Thanks, team. I really like your nomenclature, and it's wonderful to see also the fellow panelists, some of them who I already know as friends, in my earlier life as clients. So nice to see everyone. And it's always wonderful to be part of NITIE's sessions. I think this is my third event. And I was telling Anubhuti that I was really looking forward to physically being there at your campus. It's a lovely campus that you have. It's also nice to see Anju ma'am and great to be part of this platform. So I think firstly, Anu has done a great job of covering a lot of fundamentals and diving into some of the aspects. So at the cost of not repeating some of the things, what I'll do is I'll use these 10-12 minutes that have been allotted to me to also little bit have interaction with the students, see if I could answer some of your burning questions around anybody who's willing to be part of this profession of ESG career, right? So very quickly, I will finish. I just have 3 slides to share. Let me know once you start seeing my screen. And guys, I want to really keep this interactive. Then it's fun, right? So tell me, what do you really see in this picture? I'll give you 20 seconds.
Ma'am, the first thing which I could see was a person with a beard and mustache, I guess. But
That's right.
Then I am able to see curtains and flooring styles. I guess some kind of posters. That is what I can see. Okay, so now I am able to see a person with his hand, something. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else?
I see a lady. I see a chessboard. There's a person as well.
Right.
Good.
There, I need one more answer, one last answer, and then I'll perhaps share my views here. Anybody else? Anju ma'am, you want to give it an attempt?
Ma'am, you're on mute. Anju ma'am, you're on mute.
So whatever has been said so far, I can only see that much.
Okay. Sure. So there is one more answer which I get here, the third answer, which is a mother breastfeeding a baby. So I don't know if you can now see that. But so the point I was trying to make is that, ESG really means very different for different companies, for different people. And it's really, there is no right or wrong answer. As you see in the picture, it's really your perspective, the way you look at things, right? So when it really comes to ESG, it's important to understand what really is our objective and intent. And I think Anu's already spoken about the need for ESG framework, so I won't deep dive into it. But the important aspect here is that India today, as we all, I'm sure you would have heard about this, that it really needs 2.5 trillion as part of climate finance. And currently, there are COP26 discussions going on. We do understand that there is a lot of vulnerability as far as the climate impact is concerned globally, not just for India. But really slowly transitioning companies from what they are doing now towards a sustainable roadmap is something that is going to be a long-term process on a long-term road. It's not going to be something which is going to be. So, while we look at individual companies, and I'm sure, Vishal and other people from our panelists from UPL will talk about how companies look at ESG. But what I wanted to start off, our discussion was that ESG, traditionally, it also means compliance with the law of land, and within environment, health and safety, and social, there are more than 100 rules and regulations, right? So definitely ESG frameworks, there are a lot of frameworks which have come up, and in a bit I will talk about it as well. But essentially, the first thing it should do is it should comply with your Indian regulations around environment, health, safety, and labor. And then secondly, another popular framework on ESG is also the IFC performance standards, or IFC EHS guidelines, which are very specific to every sector, right? So let's just, before we get into the different standards, let me tell you the way I interpret, ESG frameworks. And in a simple language, it is known as the ABC framework, where A means avoid harm, B benefit stakeholders, and C means contribute to solutions. So this essentially means a journey, right from if a company is starting, and if the company is very nascent, if it's a small startup in a very manufacturing sort of a environment, then you want to definitely avoid doing any harm, right? So that's the bare minimum that you're going to do. Over time, as you progress, as you make profits, you want to ensure that you benefit your stakeholders, right? In the pursuit of gaining that financial profit and outcomes, you ensure that you put in some strategies in place which are going to benefit your stakeholders. And there could be several stakeholders, but definitely the community, your employees, and your customers. And then the advanced stage is really about contributing to solutions, wherein a company is really quoted as an example, right? So HUL is one example that Anu spoke about, and a few others as well. But really something which can, contribute to solutions to social and environmental problems. Now let's take an example. If you look at example B on the screen over here, what it really means to avoid harm. So let's say if a company is selling products, it would be selling products that are compliant with the local health and safety regulations, right? So that's a bare minimum that you have to do. so that you are not in any non-compliance. Over time, how will the company transition from avoiding harm to benefiting the stakeholders? It will sell products that support positive but marginal health outcomes at scale to customers who may already be well served, which means you are advancing, you are integrating ESG within your business and value proposition such that you're able to benefit the stakeholders. Then C, which is contribute to solutions, would be a scenario wherein selling products that enable an otherwise undeserved population to achieve long-term significant health outcomes. And so I believe the example for this would be, shampoos of 5 rupees by Unilever, which are only available in rural areas. Those are not available in urban areas, right? Because the population there should be able to afford their products as well. At the same time, now if you see, a lot of these companies are also looking into the packaging, right? How to make the packaging more sustainable as well. So this is essentially a framework, which is being adopted by the Impact Management Project. And here I want to, seamlessly bring in the term impact as well, because when we talk about ESG, impact is also something which goes hand in hand. And like I mentioned earlier, ESG means different terminologies for different stakeholders. It would mean sustainability, it would mean compliance with the regulations, it would mean impact, it would mean climate risk, a lot of these things. Right? And so, like I said, there is no right or wrong definition. Me as an investor, if today I'm representing EverSource Capital, which is a fund manager for India's first climate focused fund. The way we look at ESG framework is clearly starting from compliance, with the local regulations. Then we go beyond compliance, which is we very well integrate ESG across the deal cycle, wherever investments we are making, right from the stage one, when we are screening the deals and opportunities. We want to ensure that it is also being evaluated from the ESG perspective, right? And so that's when we start bringing in other standards and guidelines like the IFC performance. Then there are several investors who also publish their environment and social standards like the CDC, FMO, Green Climate Fund, NIIF, right? So there are several standards, and depending on what your mandate is, your investors would want you to comply with their standards. And the way we do is we cascade these standards down to our investee companies or the portfolio companies in which we invest. Right? So that's how traditionally ESG, has really grown and advanced to the stage where we are. So this is really the landscape today, and I will just quickly touch upon, you look at the top right box there, you will see sustainable development goals, and I'm sure everybody is aware about it. It should ideally be the way of life, and I'm not just talking as a professional, but also individually. How can each of us really live our lives in a sustainable manner? So SDGs really gives you a very good roadmap, exactly tell you different strategies by way you can convert your today's life into making it more sustainable. IRIS Plus Impact Management Project. So these are, some of the impact-focused frameworks which very well integrate the sustainability aspects as well as the environment, social, and the corporate governance aspect that we're looking at. But currently this is also creating a challenge for the investors because there are so many standards, as you can see on the screen, right? And it can often become confusing as to which standard should be adopted, which is the best standard of all. Is there a standard, a single standard which integrates all of these requirements? So the answer is no. I believe after COP26, there should be some sort of a unified standard that people are looking at. But again, really depending on what sector you are operating, what is the phase of your project, right? So if you are at the very initial stage wherein you've not established your operations, you're just starting off with your operations, you don't need something which is very, I would say, aggressive in terms of your performance, right? So you are really looking at the construction side of this and then able to manage those risks. Then once your second phase, when you operationalize, when your facilities are set up and your plants are up and running, workforce, then that is when you're really looking at training your workforce and developing a lot of these infrastructure around being a compliant, but as well as going beyond compliance and really raising that bar of mandating a lot of these ESG things. And so depending on what sector you are, you can pick the appropriate one. And then the lastly, over time when you are, either shutting down your facility, or if you're an investor and if you're exiting a particular facility, you may want to choose a certain standard. But that is the time you also need to consider your initial standard, because that will give you a very good baseline as to 10 years ago, what was the standard you ever adopted, and today, after 10 years, how have you performed? How have you grown? What have been the positives as well as what have been the negatives, right? But broadly, I would say that SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, very well fit across all these 3 or 4 phases of a project lifecycle. Last but not the least, I think the supply chain is very integral to the company's operations. And today, no more there are companies, progressive companies especially, who are just limiting their ESG performance within their plant boundaries and operations, but they are really extending to not just tier 1, but to tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers as well. I have specifically just kept this slide because I know there are students who would want to understand as to what are the traits, what are the qualities that are required for being an exceptional ESG professional, or if I really want to choose ESG as a profession or sustainability as a profession, what should I really be having in me, right? So while I think everybody has their own personal traits and qualities, and unlike or rather like any other profession, you need to be sincere, you need to come up the learning curve, especially since students will be joining after your course, right? There will be definitely a learning curve, and that is when you need to be very, very aggressive in terms of picking up, doing multitasking, but at the same time being very vigilant, having an eye for detail. Right? So a lot of those aspects are there, but I thought, let me just summarize some of the things. So I will first start with accountability. Whatever work you are given or provided, you really need to take the accountability for it. Regular follow-ups, ensure you do your research well before you even write an email or prepare an email, right? If you're writing an article about it, make sure it has the necessary references. These are small things, but these really go a long way. So really owning whatever assignment you are provided. So that ownership behavior really needs to be demonstrated as part of ESG. And I tell you the reason why. ESG professionals is also something, and while I will obviously tell you that it's a very exciting profile and a very exciting profession, it has its own challenges as well. The challenges are there because, sometimes in India, ESG is also seen as a hindrance. And I say that because, you've seen there are a lot of instances wherein if there is any non-compliance with the regulation, and if the company is very serious about it, or the investor is very serious about it, they will not invest. What that really translates into, it really affects your triple bottom line, right? You're not able to make that deal. You're not able to crack that particular investment, and hence you're not able to, tap into the market. Your brand is not up there in the market. Sometimes it affects the share prices. The stakeholders get affected. But in the long term, people do realize that it was the wise decision. So ESG profession is always about not taking shortcuts, not looking into just the immediate returns, but really looking into a long-term return. Right? So you need to be really confident about your take, confident about your analysis and interpretation, and that's where accountability plays a very, very important role. Second is, culture and people, and I will, tie this up with collaboration, because these are very essential aspects as an ESG professional, either in an organization or an industry or even on the investor side. You really need to work with people, right? So people from different functions, it could be finance, it could be legal, operations, procurement, because ESG really flows across all the functions of our industry. And the challenging part here again is going to be first is to be able to convince them to see the value in ESG. And once you are able to tap that, you will seamlessly be able to, work very closely with them and deliver results. And I'm telling you, this is a very important aspect that, if you are able to collaborate with people of these different functions, you really, it's like you're taking the box for being successful ESG professional. Compliance is again very straightforward. No matter what, whether or not you're able to achieve the best practices in ESG frameworks or not, there should never be any non-compliance as far as the regulations are concerned. So any non-compliance with respect to the Indian environment, health and safety and social aspects is something which is a big no-no, and that is it could entail a big risk if as a professional you are allowing that to happen. Right? Innovation, I'm sure NITIE students are very good at it. So I will not elaborate on it. But as an ESG professional, you really need to do things in a very innovative manner. So presentations, for example, you cannot make it a lot of words on a slide, right? You have to be very succinct to the point, and it should also translate into the ESG value and how it's going to convert into the financial value. Because that's the way, that you are able to get the buy-in from most of your stakeholders. So until and unless they don't really see that tangible value, and sometimes ESG professionals do struggle with that, right? So how do you really show the importance of ESG in terms of tangible value? Today, there are really a lot of examples, and there are a lot of aspects wherein ESG directly correlates to a lot of these tangible values in terms of branding and marketing, in terms of the triple bottom line as well, in terms of avoiding huge liabilities. Anu spoke about the BP and other examples when there was environmental contamination. There are a lot of cases on websites, if you see, wherein a company had to pay a lot of litigation money, because of getting into environmental issue, right? So how do you really innovate? How do you convey and communicate as a smart professional so that even a non-technical or a non-ESG technical person is able to really understand and you are able to get them by? And then monitoring your own performance, how did you really start as a fresher in an industry? How are you doing 6 months down the line? How are you doing 1 year down the line? Where do you really want to be in 3 to 5 years? Do you want to be on the industry side? Do you want to be on the investor side? Do you want to be in a consulting organization? Do you want to join an NGO? Do you want to join the policy and the government? Right? So there are so many options available as a career for ESG. And that is what you need to tackle in. So I'm conscious of time, but I want to give a few minutes to students to really ask if there are any questions or any comments that you want to make.
Ma'am, we have, hello ma'am, hi. So we have opened the floor for questions just now. So we have received few questions. So we're thinking to take the questions towards the end of the session, if that'll be okay.
Sure.
Okay, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Okay, ma'am, because we have a plenty of questions. So we are thinking to take it up towards the end. That'll be okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Anubhav.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes. Thank you, Tejaswini ma'am, for your insightful sessions. Actually, we really liked how you explained about what exactly is needed from us, how we could actually get into the field of ESG and sustainability. That is what we were looking for. And also how you talked about how non-compliance with ESG and HEC could actually act as a hindrance if we look towards that. Thank you so much for your time. I'd like to invite our next panelist, who's Dheeraj Gava sir and Nikita Karelia ma'am from UPL. Dheeraj Gava sir is a sustainability and environmental professional with close to 6 years of experience in area of sustainability, ESG, and environmental compliances in agrochemical and chemical industries. He completed his Bachelor of Engineering in Environmental Science and Technology from SRICT Ankleshwar and currently working as Environmental Specialist with UPL Limited, Mumbai headquarters. During his career at UPL, his team has achieved various benchmarks in the field of sustainability report, ESG rating, GHG emission accounting, and environmental legal compliances. Dheeraj Gava sir would be accompanied by Nikita Karelia ma'am, again from UPL. Nikita ma'am has done her BE in Environmental Science and Technology. She's also a graduate in Industrial Safety and currently pursuing her ME in Environmental Engineering from BITS Pilani. She's a gold medalist and has 6+ years of experience in the field of environment and sustainability and is associated with UPL Limited as an environmental specialist. At UPL, she is responsible for global sustainability reporting, representing UPL in top international ESG rating indices and for environmental compliances. We welcome you, sir. We welcome you, ma'am. I would request Dheeraj sir to take the floor for his presentation.
Okay, I'm audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you very much to all the people, and thanks to all the students to join this session. My name is actually Dheeraj, but you guys let me finish my presentation in a fast way. So it's opposite of Dheeraj. Okay, sure. So we working in UPL as an environment specialist. So you guys are very lucky that when you join currently, you get a formal proper education on sustainability, ESG related all the matters. When we join the UPL, we are just an engineering graduates. So it's a 6-year learning experience also in ESG and sustainability area. So in my presentation, I want to cover how the behind the scene of sustainability reporting. When any corporate make its report, so what is the behind the story? What kind of issue any organization faces while making the ESG report? So let's start. So as our Anu also mentioned the history behind the sustainability, so I'm just going very fast on that. So we know that ESG means environment, social governance. If we go to history, in 1987, the United Nations Plan Commission first time coined the sustainability word, means meeting the needs of the present without the compromising the availability of future generation. Then in year 2000, we have a Millennium Development Goal, and in 2005, it is supported by Sustainable Development Goals. But whatever the ESG momentum we are seeing in the market is because of the responsible investment concept. Because worldwide, all the investors want how this investment process can be integrated into ESG. So in end of 2004, United Nations Global Compact make one report called "Who Cares the Win." In this report, they first time mentioned that how ESG can be integrate the investment decision. So after that, this report will become the base of the foundation of principle UNPRI, Principle for Responsible Investment. In this PRI, we have a 6 principle. This all 6 principle guide the investor how they can integrate their ESG into their investment process. So if you check the responsible investment definition, so the simple definition is that integrate your ESG parameters in your investment strategy. So this was a definition given by the UNPRI. Currently, UNPRI have 4,000 signatories and $120 trillion US dollar economy under this principle. So in India, many financial institutes also become the signatories of UNPRI. So currently, this ESG investment also become popular in India also. If you check recently, currently India have a 10 biggest ESG funds in mutual funds. Currently, its market AUM is 11,000 crore. And recently, if you check the SEBI circular 2 days back, currently it's become 12,000 crore. So as we know that the ESG reporting and financial reporting both are the different thing, but what make them different? In ESG report, we're talking about the ESG parameters in environment, social governance. In environment, we talk about the climate change, pollution, pollutants, emission, environmental stewardship, environmental impact of organization. In social, we talk human rights, diversity, labor practice, CSR, safety, occupational safety. In governance, we talk about the governance structure. And recently, especially after this pandemic situation, we've seen the highest data security related issue. So currently in governance, the data security and data privacy also become the hot topic. If we compare this all thing with the financial reports, so in financial report, it's a very completely straightforward. What is the asset liability, company's revenue and loss, cash flow thing, and return on investment, and all the financial related regulatory disclosures. So it's a completely straightforward. But sometimes financial disclosures means financial report not give the idea how this ESG parameter can impact the finance of the organization. That's why the reason the concept ESG reporting comes. And even also we've seen that the UNPRI, we have a 4,000 signatory. So it's a common thing. It's obvious that the investor want to know how companies are working on the ESG. So currently in ESG report, there are many frameworks which integrates this ESG related matter into financial reporting. So when we talk about the ESG frameworks, there are two kind of frameworks. One is a voluntary, second is a regulatory. In voluntary, we have a GRI, integrated report, SASB, UNGC COP, TCFD, and recently most popular, the UN SDGs. In regulatory, in India, by SEBI, we have a BRR report, which currently upgraded as BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report. And recently, if you check the international point, in EU countries, they mention one topic called EU taxonomy. In simply, what kind of investment you are doing, it is sustainable or not. This regulation will tell how you filter out, how you can define your investment is sustainable or not. So this EU taxonomy will be the biggest challenge in the market. So currently, if your company have a business in European Union, so EU taxonomy will become the biggest headache for such organization. And about the UPL reporting, so currently in ESG point of view, we have two reports. One is our sustainability report, and second is our annual report. In sustainability report, we use framework GRI and also we are the part of UNGC member. So our communication on progress means COP is also mandated to publish in a report. And apart of that, we are very highly working on CSR activities. That's why the reason we also integrate the 17 SDG goals with our all operations. About the annual reports, it's a financial disclosure report, as well as per the SEBI's guideline, the BRR report is also included in our annual report. So this way, if you check the UPL's website, you will find these two reports who tells about UPL's ESG journey. And Mudda of the topic, ESG report process. So there are so many steps while we are working on that. First is your team building. Second is selecting your framework. Third is stakeholder identification. Fourth is material assessment. Fifth is your data collection. Sixth is your integration of different reporting frameworks. And last is your third-party assurance. So we will just go one by one, try to cover this all things. In team building, if we talk about the financial reporting, generally company secretaries are the prime people who are responsible companies, all financial disclosure in a public domain. But when we talk about the ESG, initially the trend is that, as Anu madam mentioned, that the safety people, marketing people, or corporate people, or sometimes some organization, the CSR team also working on this area. But as the current trend is going, and ESG investment and ESG term is very popular among the corporates. So new terminology also come, which is we say Chief Sustainability Officer. So currently all biggest organization in the world, you will find Chief Sustainability Officer in their organization, in their board of director also, as well as if any organization didn't have any Chief Sustainability Officer, but at least they have some kind of formal, informal structure to embed the sustainability in their organization. So this Chief Sustainability Officer can work with all the department and organization to collect the ESG related data, and also embedded the policy and strategy of the management. So there are two kind of structure. One is a formal, where everything is completely defined. In the informal way, every department can have a sustainability champion or sustainability representative who can give the data and disclosure about the ESG to the chief sustainability officer or the CEO of the organization. This way, this ESG related policy and all message can be directly communicated to board level. Next, selecting the reporting framework. I want to quote the KPMG's report, the KPMG survey sustainability report. As we know, worldwide, they conducted one survey on global 250 companies based on their revenues. So you can see the trend that from the last 3 years that the GRI is a prime report which is mostly used by the organization. Second number is your integrated report. And from the 2017, that's why the reason, if you check the TCFD, the 2017 column is 0 because during the 2017, your TCFD recommendation come in the picture. That's why it's at 0. But currently in 2020, it's an increase by 37%. And about the SDG, as we know that in 2015, the SDG come in the picture. That's why the reason right now organization also reports on SDGs. So it also increased. You can see that worldwide, all the reporting frameworks are increasing. But right now, the GRI means Global Reporting Initiative is a prime reporting framework. So if we talk about the regulatory point of view, recently we, as per the SEBI, we have a BRR report, but I think last year, August, they updated this, and now we have a business responsibility and sustainability reports, which is mandatory to all 1,000 listed companies, and it is mandatory from the financial year 22-23. Currently, it is a voluntary for this current financial year. From the next financial year, it will become mandatory. So right now, all the voluntary guidelines, which we see that they are voluntary right now, they've become mandatory. So this way, in organization also, and as a career point of view also, this is the golden time for sustainability professionals, because every organization right now are completely hiring and recruiting the sustainability champions. That's why the reason you can see the highest recruitment of sustainability people in different organizations, especially in financial sector. And about the out of India, recently Singapore Exchange Board also mandated they are planning to mandate the TCFD disclosure to all investment firms. Currently, they are planning to mandate for the investment funds, but later on they can also extend it to all the listed companies in Singapore Exchange Board. And about the integrated report, there is one amazing story is that in February 2017, SEBI circulated one guideline that all listed 500 companies should report, actually recommend it to report IR related disclosure in your report. That's why the reason, if you check all the biggest company in India like Reliance, Adani, Axis Bank and all, they started integrated report in very old time. From the 2017, they already started. That's why the reason, if you check all companies report, you find that they are using IRC guidelines. So, and the biggest part when we talk about the sustainability report, in sustainability report, what makes is a very unique is that the stakeholder identification. In financial report, we have financial parameters which is completely defined and regulated by the regulators. But when we talk about the sustainability report or ESG report, we have to consider stakeholder in our consideration. That's why the reason we have to conduct materiality assessment and also identify our stakeholder of the organization. So currently, any organization have a two stakeholder. One is called internal stakeholder. Second is called external stakeholders. In internal stakeholders, your board of directors and all your employees, whether they are permanent, contractual, from your white collar job or blue collar job, all the employees will be the part as an internal stakeholder. As an external stakeholder, your customer, your investors, your academics, your community, supplier, they are your external stakeholder. So while making the sustainability report, you have to take feedback from this all stakeholders, what they want to know of the organization, what they want to know ESG related disclosure of any organization. That's why the reason you have to conduct called materiality assessment. In materiality assessment, in simple way, if I want to say that, what your stakeholder wants from you, you take the feedback from them. So in materiality assessment, I just mentioned the example of UPL sustainability report. So in financial year 2017-18, we conducted this activity. But after the 3 years, especially after the Aristas acquisition, we conducted again last year in this financial year. So this was the current our materiality assessment. So this way, you know that if you check this graph, one axis, there is a point that relative important to your stakeholders, and second is relatively important to your business. So that's why the reason sustainability professional can know that what their stakeholder want from your organization, and stakeholder point of view, what is the important for them. So when we talk about the materiality assessment, many people ask then when we should conduct. So ideal frequency is actually 2 to 3 years. In after every 2 or 3 years, you can conduct this materiality assessment. But before that, if you have any biggest merger, demerger, like UPL have Arista merger in financial year 1920, major change in your board of directors, CEO, or any chief key people at the board level, or major shift in your product portfolio. Means recently, you can say that any company merged, demerged, or conducted different kind of portfolio, or included new portfolio in their business. So in that case, you have to conduct the materiality assessment. Because when we conduct the materiality assessment, after this all changes, we can get the new thing about the organization. And this materiality assessment and stakeholder engagement is a uniqueness of any sustainability ESG report. Even if you are in the same industry sector, this report is unique to the organization. For example, UPL is an agrochem company. If you compare with this all the Indian other agrochemical company, our stakeholder materiality assessment are different than the other. Our material issues are unique. Their material issues are unique. Even they both are in the same industry sector. And now the biggest issue, once you make team, decided how to which reporting framework you want to use, and after all the materiality assessment, now biggest challenge is your data collection. So how much the organization is big, the data collection process might be very complicated. But as we know that currently, we are in the era of internet and all the AI related things. Currently, there are many software providers in the market. Even the startups also started in this area, which can help the organization to collect their ESG data. So most popularly in worldwide, two software we know popularly. One is the Analog, and second is Sphera. Sphera is actually a US-based company, but before actually Sphera acquisition, the ThinkStep, which is a German company. So after the acquisition, now the ThinkStep is a part of Sphera. So these two companies, Analog and Sphera, are the biggest ESG data collection, data tracking mechanism software. They provide the corporates at a corporate package how to collect their ESG related information on one dashboard. Because when we talk about the ESG data, every department have their different mechanism. Might be finance team have a SAP, your safety team have some different kind of software, your HR team have different kind of software. So how to integrate this all data and different data collection into one dashboard? So this kind of organization will help you. Even some startup also started in this area, and specifically India. So in India, as I know, there's one organization called Trini, and second is Verdict Incorporation in Vadodara. So these are the two, which is an Indian startup in this area. So who are the students who seeing this? I can say that yes, if you want to start up, this ESG data collection is one of the big area in the market, and you also seen that slowly the Indian players will also come in this area. Okay, as we talk about the integration of the sustainability frameworks. So every organization have a different industry sector. Every sector also have their own disclosure methodology. So if I talk about the UPL, so currently we are using the GRI guideline, as also mentioned that we also started the reporting on UN SDGs, and we also part of UN United Nations Global Compact. That's why the reason we also reports on 10 principle of UNGC, which is called Communication on Progress. So if you check UPS sustainability report, you will find these 3 framework embedded in one single sustainability report. If I give you some example of other companies, for example, most favorite my one, the Mumbai International Airport, which is the only airport in India who makes sustainability report. They use GRI guideline, as well as they have on airport related business disclosure. So they use that guideline, as well as your BRR report, which is also called as NVGs. And about the BPCL, it's a petroleum company. That's why the reason they are actually using IIRC, means integrated report, as well as they also using the oil and petroleum sector related disclosure and your SDGs. This way they embedded 3 or 4 guidelines. And about the Adani Power, they started TCFD disclosure along with their integrated report. And if I talk about the Reliance, which I find highest different disclosure, they are using around 13 different disclosure, because they are in diverse areas. So they use different reporting frameworks in their integrated report. And all about the assurance. As we know that when we talk about the financial report, the authenticity of financial report decided by its auditor's certificate. Similar way for the sustainability report also, or ESG report also, the third party assurance is a key parameter when we are talking about that. So currently, if you check that, the mostly sustainability reports have either one assurance level. One is limited assurance. As I mentioned the example of UPL, we have a limited assurance on our sustainability report. And one example is Reliance. In Reliance 1617 report, they taken the comprehensive assurance. So this assurance will give positive impact in the market, that whatever the data you are disclosing your ESG report is verified or checked by any third party. That's why the reason the assurance of sustainability report is primary. Sometimes you also find that if any company who started recently their assurance, their sustainability report, they're not taking the assurance. But believe me, if you take the assurance, this one certificate will increase the credibility of your data. That's why the reason for the sustainability report is a very important. And we talk about the benefits. First, you can use as a regulatory disclosure. It will also increase your disclosure strategies. Because when we use the sustainability report, many times the organization didn't know that what kind of data they should report in the public domain. So when we use GRI, TCFD, and different disclosure framework, organization can get also insight that which kind of data they should report in a public domain. So ESG report will help on that. And all about the in next section, which we take by the Nikita, they will talk about the ESG rating and rating. So this sustainability report is primarily useful for your ESG rating. And when we publish our disclosure in the public domain, it will also increase the trust among our stakeholders, our investor, our community people. We know that a part of our financial business, what we are doing. So that's why our trust will increase in the market. And also this report can be used as a peer benchmarking tools. You know that what kind of system you have in your organization, in your peers. This report is a public domain report, publicly available. That's why the reason it will also help you to set benchmark and peers comparisons. And also when we talk about the ESG, sometimes many organizations also use their ESG and sustainability report as a branding tool also. They mention the sustainability aspect of their product and services, and talk about everything what they are doing in the development of their product and services. So it can be used as a branding tool. And as we know that the ESG report and ESG rating will be the primary for the investor. So how does investor use? So first, they use ESG data as your primary source for sorting. Even they also use this data as a risk identification while making this investment decision. Even they also right now, like when Nikita will explain, this ESG related data also used as a data research and analysis by various data providers in the market, like DJSI, Sustainalytics, and other ESG rating providers. And also it used for your ESG rating and ranking. If I want to give example how investor can impact on ESG related matters. Recently, BlackRock, which is the world's biggest biggest investor, they voted against 255 directors for climate change related issues. So you can see the impact. Now the investor also are very alert on this area. Even they also develop their own research team on the ESG related matters. Even they also, if you check, if you are very active on the LinkedIn, you will find that from the last 2 years in financial sector, the ESG related requirement is also increased very drastically. So this is the impact of ESG reporting, and this reporting also used in your ESG rating. And so this is from my side. Hope everyone will like it. And if you have any feedback on this sustainability area, or you want to know something, you can directly mail or contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dheeraj Gava, sir, for your insightful discussion on ESG reporting. Now I invite Nikita Karelia, ma'am, an environment specialist at UPL, to follow.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Is my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we have seen about different disclosures, different frameworks, but what is the use of that? That will be covered in ESG ratings. So I'll give a glimpse about ESG ratings, like what is it, how, what are different ESG raters, what is its methodology, what are the uses of ESG ratings, how to improve your ratings, and what are UPL's achievements. So, by the name itself, you would have known that what is ESG rating. So, it is some kind of a scoring methodology that will score on companies' E, S, and G performance. What is its long-term resilience and what are its material risk. So, the companies that have good ESG scores are seen to be the companies that have better anticipated future risk and what are its opportunities. Now, what is the target audience? So, investors are the target audience for ESG ratings. It helps investors to make, to identify which are companies' financial ESG risk and wherein to invest, which companies are good to invest in. So, as you can see in the picture, there are different parameters of E, S, and G. Now, why ESG investment, it is so much into the picture, it is so much into the spotlight. It is just after Paris Agreement and COVID-19, the focus has been increased. If you can see in the graph, this is the global representation of ESG asset that is increasing year on year, and it is expected to increase by 50 trillion US dollar by 2025. Even if we talk about India, the asset under management has expanded 4 times in 2 years. Now, yes, you can see my whole screen, right? Hello?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah. So there are different type of ESG raters. They are categorized as fundamental data provider, comprehensive, and specialized data provider. In fundamental data provider, some of the examples. So globally, there are more than 600 plus ESG raters, but I have given a comprehensive list of most of the famous ESG raters. So if we take an example of fundamental data provider, just like Bloomberg, so what is the methodology is that they will rate the company based upon whatever information has been provided or whatever information is in public domain. Now, what happens in comprehensive data provider? Some of the prime ESG raters are DJSI, Sustainalytics, MSCI. So what they'll do is they'll interact with you. They'll give you the questionnaire. They'll invite you. You can fill the questionnaire, and they'll rate you based upon your peer performance. Now, some of the raters are thematic type of raters. For example, if we focus upon EcoVadis, they will rate sustainable procurement. They'll focus more about sustainable procurement rather than going into ESG. True Cost and CDP focuses more about climate change and environment and climate related risk. So I have given the pictorial representation of different ESG rating methodology. If I take an example of DJSI, so DJSI, what I feel is it is a very comprehensive rating which covers in-depth E, S, and G parameters. So invitation would go to companies, wherein the companies will get a questionnaire depending upon their sector, and it needs to be filled out in 3 to 4 months, and the rating has been given on the scale of 0 to 100. This is an yearly activity. Their rating methodology differs in a way that in S&P, the raters require 3 type of information. For some of the questions, they'll require publicly available information. So if you're not having any publicly available information, they'll not rate or they'll not grade for the particular section. Similarly, if I go to Sustainalytics, they'll only depend on publicly available information. So if you are they are scoring on your risk level. So lower the risk, good is your company. Similarly, if I go to MSCI, then they are rating the companies on AAA to CCC. That is from leader to laggard. So these are the type of different methodology. Now, type of investing. If we this comes under sustainable finance, but just to give a glimpse about a different type of investing, what investor focuses upon. So, if investor thinks that he needs to do exclusion, then he'll screen out for the companies or the sector which are in controversy or which are in related with manufacturing of weapons or gambling or such type of things. So they'll not invest in companies like that. Or some of the investor thinks that I'll be investing in best in class. So whichever companies who are good or best in their sector compared to their peer, investor would be investing in that. Similarly, it is there are different type of investing. Just like Dheeraj gave an example about BlackRock, that they have invested against the investors. So that will come under engagement and voting, wherein active investor there is an active investor role in companies. How ESG ratings are used. So ESG ratings are beneficial for organization as well as investor. So with the help of these ratings, different type of ratings, organization would able to know that where they are standing, in comparison to peer. For example, if I take DJSI, it will not just rate on your performance, but it will rate compared to your peer, like where you stand compared to your peer. So even if you are doing better compared to last year, that doesn't mean that you will be scored high, but it would be on peer comparison, like how comparatively your peer are also performing. This improves your disclosure strategy because most of the this ESG rating have interrelated frameworks. Like CDP also focuses upon TCFD framework. So if you think to go in CDP, like if your investors are asking CDP disclosure from you, you'll have to integrate TCFD into your sustainability or integrated reporting. Now, with the help of ESG rating, you'll improve your product and services. Like you will go more into taking renewable sourcing or sustainable sourcing, or you'll reduce your dependency on groundwater consumption. Like, and ultimately, this all will enhance your compliance. Like you will always think to go beyond your compliance. Now, how it is helping investor? So these ratings, the outcomes, what are the end results of that rating? How that would be important for your company strategy? How that would be important for your company? continuously improve transparency and reporting. Now, even talk to your investors, like what they think some of the materials are critical for your industry. Talk to investor, identify which of the ratings are important to them, and apply for that rating. Be aware of red list. Try to avoid that you never come in any of the rating in red category. Otherwise, it is a trend. Like if you come in red category for one of the rating, significantly you will be coming in other red list also for other ESG rating, and that would reduce your investment. Know how ESG ratings compare or differ and address the mistake. Like if even if it is from your end or from investors end, like ratings end, you should know and you should proactively talk to them. How to improve your ESG ratings? Now, all the policies and strategies should be overseen by board of directors. It should be embedded in each function of the organization, whether it is procurement or environment or CSR team, HR team. It should be embedded in each function of the organization. Long-term, short-term opportunity and risk should be evaluated. Data should be consistent, transparent, and assured by third party. You should always go beyond your legal compliance. Now I'll show some of the UPL's achievement in ESG rating. In DJSI, UPL was the only agrochemical company in the world that was listed in DJSI sustainability. We had maintained BBB rating in MSCI. UPL was ranked first among global agrochemical companies in Sustainalytics, and UPL is allowed to use FTSE for good logo year over year. So this is all about it.
Thank you, Nikita ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you, Nikita ma'am. Thank you, Dheeraj sir. Thank you for your insights about EU taxonomy and how reporting is done in various industries, specifically in UPL, and also while your discussion, you actually answered few of the questions which were there. About what softwares are actually used for ESG data collection. We got to know about Sphera and Enablon. So thank you so much for your insights. Now next we have as a panelist is Captain Tapas Majumdar. Captain Tapas Majumdar sir is the founding director of the Sustainability Practitioners, a young firm working in the domain of sustainability, reporting and assurance. He's a senior sustainability professional, also a senior HR and business manager. He adds 25 years of industry leadership experience to the table, coupled with his value system from the army tenure that he has. He has diverse experience in sustainability reporting, board evaluation, corporate governance, independent director, business startup, and business closure as well. Sir is a master degree holder in HR from NMIMS and an ex-army officer. He also is a published author. His work includes building distributed leadership, prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace, I just bought my elephant, etc. We welcome you, sir. The floor is now open for your views on the topic, sir.
Anubhuti, thank you so much for that introduction. I hope my wife was listening to it as well. Okay, so let me start off directly without wasting more time. So a short presentation I'll be using to support
Yes, sir.
what I'll be sharing. So. Just a quick confirmation if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfectly visible. Thank you.
All right. All right. The sustainability practitioners, we are very happy to be here at the Green Lantern, speaking about the ESG frameworks, creating a positive impact, the industry expert speaker sessions. Thank you for inviting us. Well, we are a young firm, so a quick introduction about us. The sustainability practitioners, what we essentially are attempting to do is to impact the environment materially. And we do this through three constituents, that's business, government and global bodies, and professionals. Profitable for business, align and contribute with global bodies like the UNGC. We are signatories to that as well. We support the principles. And professionally, it has to be meaningful for profession. So fundamentally, what we offer is sustainability reporting and assurance to business. Commit, participate, and feedback. We are members of certain organizations like the UNGC, like I said. And for professionals who are the key for businesses and others to deliver, we focus on credibility, capability, knowledge, and exposure. These are various initiatives under each of these. We are part of the University Global Coalition, and like I said, we support the UNGC. So moving on to the topic. Well, I'm going to be presenting a contrarian view to kind of a contrarian view to what is being generally discussed so far, only from a point of view to highlight certain key challenges which the way we see it is slowly developing. This is a chart which talks about the blue bars are about the companies beginning to report, and the yellow one is your carbon dioxide per gigaton in the atmosphere. Now, it's more relevant for those who are probably new to this topic, but many of us would be very familiar with these kind of graphs. The similar blue chart you will find for, let's say, the number of ESG funds, the value of ESG funds over a period. All of these have kind of improved and increased, which is very nice. I'm going to superimpose another set of data over here, and that is for the number of reports that we have had. So the chart starts from 2003, but before that we already had the UNGC, GRI, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and the CDP. Then eventually, and these are some of it that I have tried to plot. There are many more. The point which I'm trying to drive here, the way I see it, while the number of companies reporting are going up over a period of time, and the same thing with the ESG funding and other initiatives as well, frameworks are also increasing in numbers. Somehow, the CO2 levels don't seem to be correspondingly coming down. Neither is the fact that the temperature is still going up. Now, if I just take a few steps back and ask myself, why is this happening? I'm quite aware there are many reasons why this possibly is happening. But one of the of the many reasons why it is happening, one of the reasons that we seem to which we believe is a major trigger point was on the reporting itself. We commissioned a principle-based study to understand the sustainability reports of organizations. So some organizations prefer GRI, some prefer SASB, some the other structures. All of these models are good. All of these have a logical, sound base, and it really meets and is continuously evolving to meet the requirements of various stakeholders like investors, like regulators, so on and so forth. So really, I think the latest one was the net zero framework, which got released, I believe, last week. And even that framework is pretty good. All right. The issue is probably, the way we see it, is not about the framework that you choose. It is not about having one super framework. I think what goes into the content of your report, that is what matters. And somehow, I think we're kind of missing it out. Although the study is not complete, I'm going to give you a sneak preview on what we have so far understood. We have done about 200 odd companies of the top 1,000 companies who are mandatorily going to disclose it next year. I'm talking about National Stock Exchange, India. That is something that we all aware. Okay, they're likely to be reporting mandatorily. So we thought we'll just have a a quick dipsticks. We are doing principle-based analysis of their report. And so far, this is what we find. We are close to about 200 plus reports that we have done so far. 35% of these companies so far that we have analyzed, we have reviewed, do not have a defined sustainability report. They have some mix and match all over the place on their websites or different sources, some not even on their websites. 55% of these companies merely report progress. They do not take targets. Now, this is very important. When you're talking about merely reporting progress, and you're saying, okay, my carbon footprint or my renewable energy consumption has increased from X to Y over a period of few years. That's great. But what do I make out of it? Is the usage actually increasing? Because I don't know, because the report doesn't tell me what is the business volume that you're dealing with of the total consumption. Because if you're growing 10% year on year, then if you tell me you've increased by a certain number in terms of solar consumption, if I really look at it as a portion of your total need for that kind of volumes, I may not really see a progress. All right, so that's what I mean. Okay, they are not sharing targets. The data is opaque. Although they are reporting progress, I can't make a judgment. 75% of the companies do not have a material map or have a map which does not adequately disclose the ESG risk. And there is a strong trend where they're trying to shy away. Not all companies, but majorly. Now, before we get into a material map of an organization, we first do the material map for the industry. So if I have, let's say, 50 parameters, when I do the material map for the industry, the company who is operating in the industry, there has to be a significant overlap. When I say significant, it should be at least beyond 50%. But when we get overlaps of 20%, 15%, or even 30%, and we go to depth of their material map, we realize not all the risks are being mapped. 85% of the companies do not disclose or have a verifiable risk mitigation plan. You may take a target on an SDG, let's say, which is great. How are you going to validate? What are the measures you're using, which are lead, which are lag? How exactly are you going to report? How are you going to capture the data? How are you going to manipulate the data for reporting purpose? All of these are opaque. It is not transparent. Especially when it comes to S, the social. The biggest default is around that. On an average, the report size is about 75 pages. So far, the maximum that we've had is about 210 pages. And the shortest was about 52 or 50 pages, around that much. For a sustainability report, it is quite amazing. All these findings, and I'm going back to my original question, for all these reports and the frameworks that we are we missing the point? Are we heading in the right direction of trying to perfect, to make some kind of a super structure for reporting purposes? What are we compromising it against? So some of the questions that we have been asking ourselves. One, are we chasing reporting models to perfection at the cost of the impact and the analysis of the impact? Are we confusing output with impact? You have taken a target, you report a number. Is that the output of your process or the impact that it has on the environment? They are not the same. Are we creating reporting models that are getting niche over a period of time, eventually it will be a property of a few, and many businesses would not either not understand or probably not afford. Today, probably there is no cost attached to it. Someday there might just be. Look at it from, let's say, an SME. I'm not talking about the larger organizations, which can afford very high paying professionals who can decode, translate, interpret, implement. I'm talking about the masses. The MSME, is it going to be understood by them and implemented? Because moment they say sustainability, okay, I don't know, so we are not into it. Like, we do this, we do that. I've heard enough warehousing companies talk about, yes, we follow sustainability, we've got electric tractors and forklifts in our warehouse. That is not sustainability, neither is tree plantation sustainability. We have gone much beyond that, but they're still talking in terms of that. Are we integrating and internalizing sustainability practice to make it part of our culture and values? Are we looking inside? Like, for example, if you are talking about, yes, we integrate, is your selection process also mentioning male, female, and the third gender? Because if you have made that change, then the culture and the thought process in your organization is definitely undergoing a change. Are you internalizing it? Or are we still focused on reporting? That is where I wanted to highlight, I wanted to discuss this point in my 10 minutes that I had. It costs you very heavy as a company. We are aware about most of the cases that I'm going to talk about here. Okay, the Supreme Court judgment that we had on saving the great Indian bustard in Rajasthan. So the solar power transmission company has to now do the transmission underground. And that's huge money, huge money. ESG litigation, Shell, Netherlands, the court has directed them to reduce emission by 45% by 2030. And this kind of litigations are now getting increasingly common. So there is a lot to lose there too. I don't know how many of us remember this. It is a recent event. Hudson-based Amphi Energy. It is a company that transports petroleum products from offshore to onshore. And there was a breach in the pipeline. And the California beach was impacted. And the community staying by the beach. They did not have an ESG. They had an ESG rating. But a detailed ESG plan where this risk to the community from where their workers come to be clearly identified and a mitigation plan in place was not available. Secondly, the cause of the breach was supposed to be an anchor of a ship which had hit the pipeline more than a year ago. So there's clearly a criminal neglect which resulted in what, and today it is facing many more, not just a public outcry, but even litigations per se. I'll give you something which happened just yesterday. A large Indian MNC to exit its investments in Myanmar by June 2020. This was reported yesterday. And it is not because Myanmar, obviously, Myanmar after the takeover and the human rights violations, the social aspect of ESG did come in. But this company took this step after it was removed from an ESG fund by Standard & Poor's a few months back. Port continued to do business with Myanmar because US declares that as a human rights violator, but they had a commercial contract. So it does open up another set of questions. But the ESG, to be part of the ESG fund and to be removed off, had business impact. So ESG reporting is not just about the reporting. Also the content matters, the impact matters. Very few models that I see focuses on the impact. That's one of the reasons why we are focusing on principle-based. Each of the models that we just spoke about has principles, like the UNGC has its principles. GRI has its principles. So we do the assessment. That's exactly what we're doing. We are assessing their reports, looking for evidences, basis the principles of the frameworks, because that talks about the content of the report that you are reporting on. Few things which are very clear. Success of an organization shall majorly be measured in terms of financial parameters. It is happening today, it will happen tomorrow. It's not going to change. Acknowledge that. But it's a non-financial parameters that are already driving the numbers. There's a new voice in the room which you need to listen to, and that is of the Chief Sustainability Officers. A very important voice and a very strategic voice. You better have a credible voice. If not, you can give us a call. But that's one voice that you need to include in your decision making, and more power to the sustainability officers. And another thing which is urgent on your agenda is your company's sustainability agenda. That has to be the mainstay. It's a very simple way that I look at it. If you're not a sustainable business today, or at best by tomorrow, there is a good chance that you're probably already extinct, just that you don't know about it. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us to make the presentation at the Green Lantern. Thank you, Anubhuti. Thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Anu, for making us part of this initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tapas sir. Of all the things which you told, one thing which actually caught my mind was more power to chief sustainability officers. So yes, sir, that would it will keep rotating in my head, because yes, that's there. Thank you so much, sir, to explain majorly about how principle-based analysis is the need of the hour, and that is what you guys are doing. And just the fact that 85% companies, they don't, or they might not disclose their risk mitigation strategies, it actually states that it's the need of the hour right now. Thank you so much for your views, sir. I'd also like to extend my thanks to Santanu sir and Anu ma'am, who are constantly answering all the queries over in the chat box, in case we don't actually get time for the question and answer session right now. Next, I'd like to invite Shantanu Satapathy sir. We welcome you, Santanu sir. Santanu sir was nominated for the Sustainability Leadership Program 2019 by CLP Group, Hong Kong, conducted by WBCST Switzerland and Yale University, USA. He has been an assessor for the CII ITC Sustainability Awards since 2011. He is also the recipient of the Most Influential Sustainability Leaders of India at the India Sustainability Leadership Summit and Award held in November 2019 by World Sustainability and World CSR Day. Sir has also received fellow doctorate PhD from NITIE Mumbai and has 4 international publications in the field of cleaner technology adoption, climate change mitigation, public policy, and green consumerism. We welcome you, sir, and the floor is now open for us to have your views on the topic. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anubhuti, and yeah, that good that you have mentioned that I am a student of NITIE over and above. So all others are ongoing actions, and thank you, Siri sir, Anju madam, and Seema madam, and all the students for inviting me. It's really a privilege for me, and I will just share my screen and. But also what Miss Anu, Miss Tejaswini, then Miss Nikita, Mr. Dheeraj, and now Captain Tapas has mentioned, that is really insightful. And let us see that what I can add further. And of course, it is the questions are very relevant and very encouraging to see that so much questions in various relevant matters are coming up, and happy to answer after that. So just please let me know if we can see my screen.
So your screen is not visible as of now to me. Nita, can you confirm?
Yes, it's
No, it's
not
not
yet
visible.
up.
So could you please try sharing again?
Okay.
Yes, so your screen is visible, but we're not able to see the presentation. Sir, if you're saying something, you're on mute and we cannot hear you.
Sir, I guess you have started a integrated sharing. I feel so you can stop sharing and then you can start sharing again. That's where you'll be able to unmute yourself. So I guess you'll be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay.
You can start sharing your presentation.
Yes, sir, we are able to see a YouTube screen right now.
Okay, and you're able to hear me?
Yes, we are
So
able
we are
to
able
hear
to
you.
hear you, but we're not very sure if the YouTube sound is. So what I can do is we'll have to enable an audio option to actually play a video. So if you could paste the YouTube link over on the chat box, I'll play it for you.
Anubhuti, I'll share the YouTube link.
Okay. So the audio is not being played. I guess Sagar is sharing me the YouTube link.
Okay.
On the chat
Yes,
box.
I've
Yes,
shared
sir.
it.
Yes, sir. Sir, could you please stop sharing? I would just play this video for you. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Earth.
Can someone please confirm if if the video was audible? Can someone please confirm?
We can't see the video on screen, Anupati.
Okay, I'll try once. Just a minute. Is the video visible? YouTube screen?
Not yet.
Okay, now?
Yes.
Okay. Nita, please confirm if it was audible.
No.
Okay, Santanu is saying it was audible. We'll start from the beginning then.
No, not audible. It is visible only.
Anubhuti, let me do it. I'll share this.
wind, water. For hundreds of years, nature has given us all we need. But now, nature is calling on us to be more mindful about energy and to stop before it's too late. But who's listening? We are. We're answering the call by leading a transformation and giving it all we have. Our experience of 20 years, our limitless passion, our world-class operating standards, our partnerships, and our investments to double our business in the next 4 years. But energy alone won't be enough. That's why we're turning energy into action. Action that ushers a new age of growth for India. Action that lights up 1 billion dreams. Action that uplifts our communities. Action that sparks a movement of sustainable change. Action that saves the planet. Who are we? Agni, Prithvi, Ambu, Vayu. We are Apraava Energy, a diversified energy business here to help India transition to clean energy. We're born and shaped by the elements, so when the wind becomes stronger, the sun shines brighter, the fire flares, and when you take a step to give back more than you take, we're there with you. This is energy for India. This is energy in action.
Yes, sir, you can share the screen now.
Yeah, thank you. Just I am sharing my screen now for the presentation I'll take you through. To see the screen.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible. We can start.
All right, thank you, Sagar and Anubhuti for helping me out. In fact, actually, why I showed it because under our branding program, it is just the name and the website. Everything is just launched this week. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to share it with you all. And now. Full screen is visible.
Sir, your screen is pretty visible, but I guess your voice is breaking. I actually confirmed with our team members as well.
Okay. Now it is better.
Yes, sir. Now it's perfect, sir. Yes, sir. We can start.
Right. So, what we have been discussing about what the companies or businesses need to do to in this ESG domain, and I'll take you through in 10 minutes or 12 minutes around that how companies are transiting, particularly in the energy sector, as we are having presence in the energy sector in the Asia Pacific region, and how the investors are influencing the operators or the companies who are working on the ground. So if you see Apraava Energy, which was previously named as known as CLP India Private Limited, and now under a rebranding program, it has changed its name to Apraava Energy. And we have the two key investors, which is one is CLP Group, one of the largest investor-owned power business in Asia, who is having 60% stake. Previously, it has 100% stake, but now it is a 60% stake. And the second investor is CDPQ, which is Canada's leading institutional fund manager, and it now owns 40% stake in CLP India, which is now Apraava Energy. And as we have been in presence in India for around 20 years, but CLP as a group, as an experienced power generator and operator, is having presence in Hong Kong for around more than 120 years. So you see, the Apraava energy, we have presence in around 20 locations in India, having one gas-based power plant in Gujarat, then one thermal power plant, 1320 megawatt coal-based power plant at Haryana, Jhajjar, and rest we have wind and solar assets across around 16 to 17 locations, comprising of more than 2,400 megawatt of electricity, which is continuously feeding Indian grid. And if you see, just there are many actions, but as we are discussing about ESG and the when you see the thermal power or power sector, the energy transition and decarbonization is the key. So that's why I'll be presenting or discussing a bit more about how we are strategizing our climatic action and what the other speakers were mentioning, that decarbonization or the transition or the scenario analysis, these are necessary to drive the ESG actions. And if you see one of our investor, which is CLP Group, it has a climate vision 2050, and it is not now. It has started in 2007, well before the Paris Agreement, or companies have thought about even for a such long target of 2050 or 2030 or 2040. Only now, after 2015 Paris Agreement, companies are gearing up their actions for a more long-term target. But CLP Group, since 2007, has derived this target for 2050. But of course, now those have been revised, then revisited, and being aligned with the global trends. So if you see from 2007, how the decarbonization journey has helped the CLP's power portfolio to decarbonize from 0.8 kg CO2 per kilowatt hour to currently 0.6. So this is a reduction of 0.2 kg per kilowatt hour. And now the target is 0.3 by 2030, then 0.1 by 2040, and net zero by 2050. Covering the whole supply chain. And the key features of this revision, this is the fourth revision of the climate strategy or the climate vision 2050 since it announced in 2007. And in the recent revision that has happened just last month in September, the key features are, it is now aligned with the science-based target for a 10 years period. Of course, the target is 2050, but science-based target allows maximum 15 years, but it is taken now for the 10 years, aligned with the science-based target. And achieving net zero by 2050. Previous version was 4% REFT, but now the revision of this version has the target of net zero by 2050 and 84% reduction by 2040. Actually, this version, we can say that nearly pulled nearly 10 years back what was the target been set in, for 2050. And also one of the key, two of the key factors is that phasing out of the coal-fired generation by 2040. So previously the target was phasing out the coal-based generation by 2050, but now it has been again preponed by 10 years that all the coal-based power plant will be stopped by 2040. And of course, in the previous version, it was announced that no further investment in coal-based power plants. That is intact. That is, there will be no further investment in coal-based power plant. But now all the power plants, the target is all the power plants, coal-based power plant, to be phased out by 2040. And one more important thing is that to meet the science-based target, one of the coal-based power plant which was supposed to be retired in 2032, now been preponed by 4 years to close it by 2028. So these are the few key features of this, but there is a very detailed document available in the CLP Group's website named Climate Vision 2050. Can refer it, or we can answer your queries as we move towards end of this session. And the second investor who I mentioned is the CDPQ, and they also have a very stringent climate strategy. And it is one of the investors who was framed its climate strategy into 2017, and now again in September is the second vision of that, and making the targets more stringent and making the investments more in green or sustainable economy. So previously, it was only around 8 to 10 billion dollars in green investment, but now it has been increased to 54 billion in green investment by 2025. Achieve 60% reduction in carbon intensity by 2030. Previously, it was 25% by 2025. And these are the two new targets are being set. That is, create a $10 billion transition envelope to decarbonize the main industrial carbon emitting sectors. So this is important that, for example, if a company or any of our portfolio company is going to close coal-based power or stop any investment in the oil sector, then what would be the transition loss? If there is any loss, so this is the kitty from which the loss will be managed. So this kitty has been created a $10 billion transition envelope to take care of any such scenario for which the plant or asset may be stopped or affected due to this decarbonization plan or net zero target. And second most important, the new target is the completely exit from oil production by 2022. So these are the key features of our second investor, that is CDPQ, towards the climate strategy. So just wanted to mention that how the investors' decisions are driving the change among the companies or the operators like us. So based on our investors strategy or climate strategy, this is our journey till now, and in future also it will be more aggressive. So you see, our renewable energy growth have been increasing since 2009, and now it is 1174 megawatt, and the total portfolio, if you see, is having more than 47%, 37% wind and 10% solar. So 47% renewable energy and 53% thermal power plant. So the only thermal power plant we have at Jajjar, Haryana. And also as a strategy, our future growth is more towards low carbon business growth. So that's why we have entered into the transmission sector in 2018, and now further we are exploring to acquire or go for a greenfield transmission project as a low carbon business journey. So this is just to mention that how we are growing in the renewable sector or in the low carbon business, but at the same time it is very important for the power sector that how they can operate more responsibly for the thermal power plants, because these are the locked in investments and those are not going to stop overnight. Those thermal plants which have been commissioned, which have been operating, those will at least run for next 15-20 years, even more than that. So that's why as a responsible operator, we are one of the cleanest thermal power plant in India, having the technologies such as supercritical technology, so which is having more efficient than the subcritical technology, and we have the zero liquid discharge. Of course, this is a very common norm, but this is the difference here, that we are the only thermal power plant in Delhi NCR region, and very few in India who is having flue gas desulfurization unit, and it reduces 90% of the SOx. And due to this, and also due to ESP and back filter as a hybrid design, but till date also we are the only thermal power plant who is meeting all the environment norms and having the FGD in place. And these are very huge investments, and currently the FGD of this size is costing around 800 to 900 crores rupees. So that's why it is very important that how a business can also operate more responsibly, even not 100% diversifying into the renewable sector, particularly when I am speaking about the energy transition or about the power sector. And that's actually makes us one of the most cleanest thermal power plant in India. So this is just to give an idea that how we can make our operations more cleaner. At the same time, also it is important that how we have to take care of our community, or how we can take care of our diversity or biodiversity in and around us. And as one of the speaker was telling, that second one I should say is the biodiversity, because biodiversity is the one area which which is making all of us to survive in the planet, but the least attention is been given towards this. And a study shows that the whole investment which is happening in the ESG space or environment space, only 2 to 3% investment is happening in the biodiversity space, where there is potential that biodiversity, if afforestation is done in a proper way and deforestation is minimized while not hampering the business growth, there is possibility that 30% of the net zero target can be solved by the biodiversity augmentation or afforestation and reducing deforestation. But the investment is very less in this area. So as a responsible corporate or as a responsible business entity, we are focusing on biodiversity in a more detailed manner, and not only restricting to the tree plantation. So of course there are around 500,000 trees been planted since our operation in India, but now we are seeing that how it can be more extended towards business and biodiversity initiative front. And our future strategy is how we can mitigate our risk, not only mitigating our risk, but how we can strengthen the protected areas and save the endangered species. So if you see the biodiversity assessment, there is a comprehensive study being done, particularly not only just tree counting, but how we can assess or prepare ecosystem service risk mapping of our assets, and then preparing a index, biodiversity index, and a natural capital action plan, so which is under progress. And this is actually in the previous slide, if you see that this is aiming towards no net loss. Similarly, as we are telling about net zero in carbon space or the decarbonization space, so in biodiversity space, that is aiming towards no net loss. Of course, a detailed plan, and this will follow, and we plan to have it in next around 2 to 3 years. But this is our thought and actions in this directions, particularly in the biodiversity area. And also in community intervention, if you see, we as a thermal power plant, of course, though we are meeting all the norms, but at the same time, we cannot say that we are emitting zero emission. So that's why, and we are located at Delhi NCR region, where air pollution is one of the critical issue. So that's why in last 3 to 4 years around, we have been closely interacting with the community and helping the farmers to reduce the crop burning, because you know that crop burning is one of the material pollution, in addition to other issues like industries, then of course the vehicular pollution and the construction. So that's why we are intervening while we are trying to adopt all the technologies, cleaner technologies like FGD or low NOx burners to minimize our emission. Also, as a company, we are intervening with the farmers to reduce the stubble burning or the crop burning, so that the pollution can be reduced in the Delhi NCR region. And due to our intervention in last 2 to 3 years, we could able to help the farmers to reduce crop burning from around 45,000 acres of farmland. And this not only helps the air pollution, minimization of air pollution, this helps the farmer to improve their economic, social, health, and total socio-economic benefit, we can say. And from economic front, how they have been benefited, because these machines which have been provided to them actually is helping to reduce their labor cost, and also the cost of diesel consumption in the tractors, which they usually use 3 to 4 times for the next crop. But due to this, only through one cropping season, they're reducing the labor cost, and also reducing the cost of fertilizers, because if they're not burning it by mulching the crop residues into the soil, which is known as the in situ management, the soil fertility also increases, so that thereby reducing the fertilizer cost. So there are many benefits, but actually our main intervention is to reduce the air pollution in Delhi NCR region by reducing the crop burning by the farmers. So these are actually the interventions which we are already doing. But as a company, as also various speakers have already mentioned, that to companies must also see the global trends. So in that direction, the future actions, we can say that eliminating use of single-use plastic, take steps towards paperless office, 100% replacement of existing light by LED, zero waste to landfill. So all these projects are under progress. Carbon, water neutrality, biodiversity, as I mentioned, and also science-based target. We just committed after our group's commitment, group's target setting rather. We have committed to science-based target, and we are planning. The target setting is under progress, and by next year, the target will be in place for Apraava energy. Of course, the CLP group has already set the science-based target, but for Apraava energy, the target setting is under progress. It will be there by mid of next year. So this actually, I wanted to convey that while there is a need of transition in every space, the power sector is leading the transition, I should say. And as you must be knowing that SBTi has set the 1.5-degree target only for the power sector now, and other sectors will definitely follow, because also the reason is valid that power sector is one of the most pollutant sector among others. So the key takeaway would be the corporate culture and the leadership that actually will drive it to the next level, and diversity and thinking, and these are the few keywords. Community needs also, while we are operating, our businesses are operating in their own domain, also they need to take care of the community needs, and very actively engage with the key stakeholders, or the including the investors and community to address the risk and find out the opportunities. And also, as few speakers also mentioned, that the culture is important. It is not about doing the thing and just bringing the output or the outcome, but to make it sustainable, the culture building is very important. The culture will hold everything together in a long run. So with this, I'd like to conclude. But as Anju madam was telling in the beginning, that none of us are working in the ESG space, but I should say that we all are working in the ESG space, less or more extent. Somebody is a professional in ESG, somebody is chief sustainability officer, but everyone, even the students, even the professors in the institutes who are spreading the knowledge and helping others to grow in this space, are working in this direction. So with this, let me end my presentation, but also look forward to the uh, questions and interaction. Yes, Anubhuti, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Shantanu, for the unique perspective on how companies are working on their climate missions. I'm sure it was interesting to know how GHG commitments are being improved upon. Next panelist on our list is Mr. Vishal Bhavsar, the head of corporate sustainability at Ultratech Cement. Sir is a sustainability professional having worked in diverse consulting and corporate roles for the past 17 years. He leads ESG and sustainability initiatives at Ultratech Cement and has a unique blend of consulting and corporate experience in making businesses future ready. He has earlier worked as a consultant with Ernst& Young in sustainability, climate change, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. Sir has been associated as a catalyst with MIT Climate Collab project, which is driving global effort on climate mitigation. He has also worked as an expert with United Framework on Climate Change Convention on various climate change assignments. Welcome to Envision 2021, sir. I now invite Mr. Vishal Bhavsar to share his thoughts on ESG frameworks owing to his diverse background of corporate experience.
Thank you. Uh, so I'll just share a short presentation where I try to share my views for the topic for today. Confirm if you're able to see the slides.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think my job becomes easier. There are so many speakers who have already touched upon the topic. But I'll try to, I think few of my colleagues have already given industry perspective on why ESG is becoming important, how ESG can be used as a tool to create positive impact. And we have heard various views on the table on ESG. So let me just quickly run through this presentation. So I want to start with maybe just trying to depict and use humor in terms of why ESG is becoming relevant. So this one I'm just picking from the cover page of Arab African International Bank, their latest sustainability report. And the picture actually just tells the story, right? If you read or if you just see the picture closely, it tries to say that I am stable or I am sustainable. So if you look at the picture closely, I don't think I need to tell more. But the choice for everybody in terms of all stakeholders, more important for investors as well as for other stakeholders, the choice will come when they will start looking at, let's say, a company A, which is there on the left-hand side versus a company B, which is on a right-hand side. That is right and left on my side. Maybe for you it will be different. But a stable company would be a company or an organization which will have a balance of all pillars. So of course, financially is going to be there. Unless profits, unless an organization is profitable, the balance on other pillars won't come, right? So that kind of balance needs to be there. And if there are companies who are just going to purely focus on financial, you can see the state, how unstable it will be initially, and of course it will topple after a time. The second image, I think this is something which I think resonates to all and mostly the students who are going to enter into this market, right? The fear of missing out. So it is just not about the young generation, but it's also playing on the minds of corporates, the leadership of maybe am I as an organization missing out something on what is getting played around the whole topic of ESG, whether I don't have my strategy right on ESG, then I may miss out on bigger picture in terms of maybe my long-term market share, my long-term viability as a business. So this is just again two images which I wanted to use to communicate the message why ESG is important and it is here to stay for long. In terms of how ESG focused business models are becoming value creators for companies, it could be a manufacturing company, it could be a service company. The same set of principle also applies for, let's say, a financial organization or financial institution like banks or any other investor. So of course, the first one is about boosting brand of organization, right? So if there is a company who is following everything about ESG, there is going to be so much of positive impact, positive carry forward on the brand image. And it's also going to, let's say, protect the whole reputation risk. Like we have heard, like the previous speakers sharing their views on if there are organizations who are not going to be compliant to ESG principles, then you as an organization are going to carry that risk, right? So that's one of the most important value creator for organizations who are going to focus on ESG focused business models. The second one, of course, organizations are cost conscious. Everybody wants to do business in the right way, but as I told you, if the financial metrics are not in line, then it doesn't support the agenda of ESG. So while companies move towards, let's say, low carbon strategies, or maybe try to improve on their whole supply chain, try to minimize their risk on supply chain, while they do that, companies will also focus and see whether this also brings value in terms of maybe increasing the top line, or in terms of cost, of course, whether it is improving my bottom line or not. The third one, of course, attractiveness. So this is again for two key stakeholders, employees first. So all of you are going to enter into maybe your first job or maybe your second job. So mostly the workforce which is entering in today's era are of course conscious whether I'm joining a brand which is having good ESG, good set of ESG or sustainability principles or no. Maybe it is not explicit, but if you try to speak to someone, the underlining thought will always be there. And students or people who are also making their career choices now, as an experienced professional, would also want to get associated with a brand or a company who is having the right set of frameworks and right set of strategies on ESG. And the same set of thought process is been applied by investors. So investors will also come on board only if you as an organization or you as a company is going to be focusing their business model on ESG based principles. The next one, I think it's more straightforward in terms of ESG helps in business continuity as well as competitive advantage. And while you do all of these, of course, from ESG or sustainability point of view, stakeholders are very important. In past, the only stakeholder which businesses used to focus was shareholder, and now almost all businesses or leadership of businesses you talk to, their frame of mind have also expanded. They also are looking at stakeholders who are more than shareholders or investors. So while you do everything from a ESG point of view, of course, a company is going to have stakeholders who are more satisfied. Now, what are the key trends? What are the key trends? On this slide, I'm trying to cover what are the topmost key trends which are there in the ESG space. And I think the most important one, or the word which you always keep on hearing from every organization, including my organization, is all about net zero. When will, let's say, a company be a net zero? When will the country as a country will you be a net zero, right? There are so many countries who have gone ahead and committed. Of course, India is there in the pipeline. India will very soon commit to net zero. But yes, this is something what everybody wants to hear. Whether how far, first is, are you committed to net zero or no? And then the second question will always be, how fast are you going to reach to that stage of net zero? The second trend is, of course, ESG is getting to center stage of everything. So in terms of, I think the Santanu who spoke just before me, he also gave a very pertinent example of his company doing the whole rebranding, right? And if you look at the new purpose which they have put out, I think ESG is there right at the center stage, right? Similarly, all organizations, everywhere you talk to, any leadership you talk to, ESG is becoming the key in terms of all decisions which are going to be made from the long-term organization point of view. The third one is governance. Like we spoke, as in all of the previous speaker also spoke on environment and social, but governance is one of the most important aspects within that ESG. And traditionally, governance has only been looked at more from compliance point of view. If the organization is listed, then you look at SEBI regulation. If you are unlisted, then you try to see whether I am meeting all my rules and regulation as per Company Act or no. But now with your comparison happening against global companies as well as new frameworks or expectations from ESGs coming in, every company is focusing more on how to strengthen the governance. How can the leadership of companies be made more accountable in terms of ESG performance, whether a strategic direction has been provided by board on ESG or no. All those kind of work is happening in this area of strengthening the governance. The next one is digitalization. So when we talk about data, I think there are a lot of questions on the chat box also, where how can, let's say, investor, I think there was a question, how can investor be convinced that whatever data has been put out is it correct or no, right? So this work on digitalization and how sustainability work related to sustainability or ESG, the digitalization is going to play a key role, right? Till now, most of the companies, I think other peers can also vouch for that. A lot of companies till maybe 2 years back were looking more of the data collection process on a, let's say, manual basis. So you have Excel based data capture process, all of that. But now all companies are moving into a maybe ESG dashboard. I think there are fancy words, ESG dashboard or sustainability dashboard. So a lot of work at background is going to happen, while all of this data will be digitally picked. There will be hardly any manual intervention. So a lot of work is happening in this area under the digitalization phase. Circularity, a lot of sectors, like there are 3 to 4 sectors which have got identified where there are ample amount of circular business model opportunities. Like the automotive sector is one, real estate or construction is the third, is I think food and agriculture. These are the 3 key sectors where a lot of work on circularity is happening. And this again is something which investors want to know, whether you as a business are moving towards more circular business models or no in longer run. And lastly, this is on no net loss. I think Santanu spoke on this. This is like more fuzzy in terms of in carbon terms, you have methodologies to account whether a company is moving toward net zero or no. But on biodiversity or nature term, when companies commit that no, we'll create no net loss, there are no methodologies currently, and a lot of work is happening in this area. Like in climate, you had that TCFD, right? Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures. Same way, and you have science-based target setting for carbon. Same way, there are going to be science-based target for nature. So that is again, these are like the top trends or top things which are getting discussed on the corporate side from ESG perspective. I'm not going to spend time. I think almost all of the previous speakers have spoken on the global frameworks, so there is no framework per se on ESG, but yes, there are different sustainability or other frameworks which are available, and people qualify those as ESG frameworks being available. But if you ask me, there is no framework which is available for ESG disclosure as of now. Now, how this is just one side in terms of if a company is moving this journey of ESG, what kind of work an organization has to do. So this is more of experience from my organization, Ultratech Cement, why we have embarked on this journey of ESG. Of course, a lot of work has happened in past, but yes, so much of momentum has come only in last 3 to 4 years. So while we try to benchmark ourselves, we try to look at maybe companies outside India, because we have reached to a size where we are comparing ourselves only to global organization now. So, and also as let's say participant to something like a Dow Jones Sustainability Index or a DJSI, which I think the UPL colleagues also mentioned. So you try to look what kind of policies, let's say DJSI is asking, or what kind of policies MSCI is asking. So when you do that, then these are the kind, like typical policies which organization may be missing, like the policy on anti-corruption or bribery, or many organizations, they don't have human right as exclusive policy. Then on social side, something called as anti-discrimination or harassment policy. So these are the policies which, let's say in our case also, we didn't have maybe 3 years back, but we have put those policies in place now, and we are now trying to align our business around this policy. the other piece is governance, and the previous slide also I spoke, right? Governance, there is a lot of focus, there is a lot of emphasis on governance. So what are the things the organization has to do in terms of governance or strengthening the whole governance process? So first one is, let's say organizations are expected to have clear ESG linkages to board performance, either to board performance or to the leadership of organization. This has to be put out. And different things like CDPs also ask for the same thing, right? Then there is one set of companies which have got identified, which is Climate Action 100. There they are asking for companies to put out the clear metric on performance is going to be measured from a climate outcome perspective, and those outcomes have to be aligned to the net zero or the Paris Agreement alignment. So that is one piece under governance where companies has to work. The next one is board effectiveness and independence. So gone are the days when maybe the board members could be sitting on the board for more than 10 years or 15 years. Like different, I think MSCI or let's say DJS also expects that your board mandate should not be more than 4 for your independent directors, and the tenure has to be also lower than 7 years, if I'm not wrong. So a lot of secretarial teams within organization are trying to see whether these requirements are getting fulfilled or not. The next one is diversity. So diversity, not just from gender perspective, but also how diverse is the board, which can look at the changing dynamics of business, right? Businesses are getting changed or transformed so quickly. If the board is not able to comprehend those changes which is going to come in, and that can only come in if the diversity of board is there. That is again an area which is there within the corporate governance. And lastly, ethics. Like ethics had been looked at only from compliance point of view, but in terms of what kind of progressive work or proactive action any organization has to take, and how the board is going to review the performance against those proactive action is kind of work which is happening under corporate governance. While you have set of policies, you strengthen your governance, you also need to put in internal processes. So there are a lot of topics. So let's say human right, not much of work has happened till now, but companies have started their journey. They have put up due diligence, as in the checklist for due diligence is trying to audit their own operations or supply chain. So a lot of new processes have got inducted into companies' overall process from human right point of view. Then net zero and decarbonization, I think most of the companies are working there. Biodiversity and nature-based solution, and lastly, ethics and transparency. So companies are putting new policies in place to see the performance and evolution on all of this new area of ESG. And last important pillar in any ESG strategy is how do companies communicate and do benchmarking. So companies needs to put a ESG communication plan. So in our case also, we have put a robust ESG communication plan in terms of what do we want to communicate to our internal stakeholders and what do we want to communicate to our external stakeholders, and how do we leverage, how do we exploit all the channels of communication which has been available to any organization. So tremendous focus is also there on how do we communicate on our ESG performance. And the other piece within this is of course benchmarking. So we are doing a benchmarking, as I said, mostly to our global peers, and we are also trying to participate into international rating process. Just quick summary. So as Ultratech, of course, we had started a journey with GRI. We also follow the IR framework. On CDP, we are doing a climate disclosure. We are also doing a water disclosure. We are also getting ourselves assessed at Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And very recently, actually, we have also adopted the TCFD framework, and we have done a full disclosure against TCFD in our latest annual report. As Ultratech, again, a couple of weeks back, or last month actually, not a couple of weeks back, but New York Climate Week, we committed to RE100 to make 100%, as in all entire operation running by on 100% renewables. And this comes after we had also committed for EP100 3 years back. This is the second commitment under the climate group from us. In terms of our performance, currently we are having our currently at 13% of our energy comes from the sources, renewable sources, and we are planning to scale this up to 34% by 2024. And eventually, of course, we have set 2050, but this, as I see, this will come in much quicker for us. Then last week, or to be precise, I think 12th of October, under GCCI. GCCI is a body which is called as Global Cement and Concrete Association. Ultratech has also committed for net zero by 2050 or earlier, and we will be working against across all stakeholders and value chain players to deliver this goal of becoming net zero by 2050. I think I'll be skipping this slide. So I think that should be my last slide.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vishal sir, for your insights. And yes, indeed, ESG is getting to the center stage and ESG is here to stay for long. Thank you for speaking specifically about the G part, governance part, because I could see there were 2 questions actually talking about the governance part. So thank you so much for mentioning and taking it specifically. Yes, net zero is the word which we have been hearing now and then. But yes, no net loss in the biodiversity part is something on which I think we as students should actually work upon. Thank you so much for your insights, Vishal sir. Now for
Anubhuti, you're on mute.
Yeah, really sorry. Okay, now next we have Mr. Inderjeet Singh with us. Mr. Inderjeet Singh leads, he is the Director and Lead ESG and Carbon Markets Deloitte. He leads the climate change and sustainability practice of Deloitte India. He has more than 20 years of work experience in areas covering climate change, mitigation, adaptation, carbon markets, GHG accountings, climate risk assessment, green buildings, and modelings. He is also an expert in energy efficiency, water conservation, demand-side management, ESG, policy and regulatory reforms, monitoring and evaluation, climate change modeling, renewable energy, and gap analysis. He has conceived, developed, managed, and delivered engagements across Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, and in Europe. We are very grateful to have you here, sir. We are looking forward to hear about your views on the topic. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anubhuti. I'm sure we are towards the end of the session. Let me know how much time I can take, because that's something which is important in terms of the overall management of the events. So if you can let me know what's the total time allocated, I'll go accordingly, because we are, as I can see, we are already at 4:18.
Yes, sir. Really sorry for the delay.
No, that's fine.
Have 15 minutes
Thank you.
of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Inderjeet Singh, and what we will do today as part of the presentation which I have kind of collated for you, I'll skip through certain slides for the simple reason that it has been talked about at a greater depth by previous speakers. But just let me bring this discussion on in terms of if we take no action and if we take action, what are the upsides and downsides that we can look at. This is a Deloitte report which has been released on 23rd of August this year for Southeast Asia, and I was part of the whole team which worked for the India piece out of it. And you will see that if you don't take any action, we are looking at close to about $35 trillion of loss to the economy by 2070. So that's one downside which we are looking at. And exactly on these sides, if say, for example, if actions are taken by the corporates, because at the end of the day, any commitment which is being made by governments, whether it is in the form of the nationally determined contributions or anything else, it typically cascades down to the industry. And that's what we have seen and we have heard from the previous speakers. We have seen Mr. Bhavsar talking about the initiatives taken at Ultratech. We have also heard about the actions which have been taken by China Light and Power and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, the businesses are required to take necessary actions. And when we talk about these necessary actions, we have to see whether we just want to align to the policies or whether we want to align to the directives in the region or territory or geography from where we carry out our business, or we want to go beyond that. And ESG per se typically pushes or nudges the businesses into going beyond what is required by law. And that's where we are right now. We are carrying out this discussion around ESG. We have heard from multiple speakers that this particular topic, though it is fairly recent in terms of the keywords that we are hearing, but at the end of the day, the whole journey around ESG is not less than, I would say, close to about 70 years or even more than that. Why it is so? Because if you have heard about Morgan Stanley as one of the rating and ranking platforms, they began with this particular journey way back in 1976. So close to about 50 years of existence is already there with respect to the ranking and rating platform. So that clearly gives us a visibility that these actions in whatever form or shape were actually being looked at carefully, even in the past. People, those who are above 40 years old in this whole gathering, they might have seen the Tata Steel advertisement. I at least very categorically remember when Tata Steel used to show their advertisement on Doordarshan, and the whole 30-35 second narrative would be around social aspects. And towards the end, the last line or last, I would say 2 seconds of the advertisement used to say, we also make steel. So if you look at the whole narrative of Tata Steel during those days, and I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s, the discussion was around social aspects. Obviously, environment was not prominent among various stakeholders at that point in time, but across the board, across several organizations, those who were forward-looking, they had looked at this particular space, I would say, fairly ahead of the market requirements. If you want to look at this report, since we have just about 15 minutes, I'll skip through certain slides here, but this report is available in public domain. You can download as to what would be the impact if we do not take action, vis-a-vis what is the upside if we take action. So by 2070, we are talking about not just negating the negative impact of 35 trillion US dollars in the Indian economy. We are talking about an upside of about 11 trillion US dollars. This report is available. You can have it downloaded. In case if you are finding it difficult, you can always drop me a mail and I can share the link with you. So I'll skip through these slides because we do not have that kind of time today to discuss. And we go to the next slide in terms of what has happened in India. And I would say last decade, as various other speakers have also elaborated, has been fairly eventful. We have seen corporate social responsibility becoming mandatory. Around 2013, we have seen the introduction of Business Responsibility Report, or BRR, which was based upon national voluntary guidelines. It was fairly, I would say, something that has nudged the whole Indian economy into taking a cognizance of non-financial disclosures with a particular intent or agenda in mind that this will, in any case, ensure that a larger compliance happens. So typically, if you look at the BRR's initial journey, it was originally introduced for top 100 companies. Then it was extended to top 500. And finally to top 1,000 companies. And now in 2018, if you see, the work around BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, commenced for the simple reason that even after having introduction of BRR, what we have seen, and it was also alluded by the previous speakers, that the compliance level is fairly limited. People believe that just tick in the box is something which is more or less sufficient for us to go forward. And in terms of extension of, say, for example, companies going out for sustainability report or integrated report, that growth has been fairly lackluster. With BRSR getting introduced from next financial year, there are a couple of changes that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has introduced. Number one, as we all know, that it is not something which is qualitative in nature. It is qualitative plus quantitative. So something which you were able to deliver in less than 10 pages in the previous era, you may need to go up to 50, 60, 70 odd pages in terms of these disclosures alone. The second thing is that it is practically something wherein they are introducing the concept of digitization to a larger depth. In BRR, the requirement was that you just need to append it into your annual report and you are sorted. Whereas in case of BRSR, you also are expected to upload the data in digitized format in XRBL is the template that is being used on the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, the way companies upload their taxation related data or P&L related statements. So that's the second principal change. The third thing, if you have looked at the template as students, you might have observed that the very first introductory part of the BRSR brings in the element of materiality. Initially, when the first draft was released in the month of August 2020 last year, the concept used to use the sentence, please pick up your top 3 products or services. So that itself has introduced the concept of materiality. This particular template has undergone a change now. But still, if you look at the language, BRSR very much wants companies to look at material aspects to their business. Several speakers have talked about what is materiality metrics, how it typically can be tailor-made for each and every organization, wherein you cannot 100% be drawing things from the sectoral perspective and so on and so forth. So there are multiple changes which are happening, and what is going to be the next outcome basis the BRSR is, number one, that the repository of data or body of knowledge will be available for running multiple algorithms, if not from next year, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. That's the first change that is going to happen. Therefore, even if there is no assurance to such kind of representations or claims in public domain, the data itself will start speaking about a particular organization, whether the performance is improving or whether it is deteriorating. That's the first thing. Then the second principal change, which is going to be introduced to the market, is who is just participating as a mandatory compliance player and who is also looking at the leadership indicators. So if you have looked at the template of BRSR, it categorically bifurcates the responses into mandatory part and the leadership indicators. So companies, those who are practically looking at the leadership indicators ahead of competition, they will build eminence, they will have a pole position in due course of time. And that's what is going to matter for the change which is required to happen in the market because of introduction of BRSR. So these are 2 or 3 principal things which are happening from the regulatory landscape point of view. I will skip this particular slide. I think everybody has spoken about it, that there are tangible benefits in terms of, say, for example, establishing a bond between employee and employer, maybe in the form of a higher valuation of a particular organization in terms of what they do, when they are accountable, when they are ethical, when they are transparent in terms of their disclosures, reduction in the legal oversight for the simple reason that whatever is required by regulatory agencies, you as an organization is already talking about it. You know that these are the impacts on the environment, these are the impacts on the society. And as an organization, several decisions, several attempts have been made to contain those negative impacts. This is a slide I would say I've been using since 2016-17 as part of various consulting offerings, and that will give you a perspective as to what are the different structures, what are the different templates, standards which are being used in the market. And you can practically draw or limit yourself to just one particular standard, or you may practically amalgamate or learn from multiple such templates. If you look at a very simple example, all those organizations, those who have migrated from sustainability report to integrated report over a period of time, they are still presenting the GRI indicator list towards the end of the integrated report. So that typically means that they still feel that GRI indicators are relevant in terms of the reflection of their performance, in terms of what they want to disclose to these stakeholders, because at the end of the day, whether it is sustainability report, whether it is integrated report, whether it is sustainability accounting standards, board related indexation disclosures, and so on and so forth, these are nothing but feedback mechanism. So as a sounding board, it is necessary for the companies when they migrate or when they transition from one level to the other level, they should carefully examine as to what are the good things in the previous standard, what are the good things that were being liked by the stakeholders, and that should be retained. Therefore, when we are looking at selecting a particular standard, whether it is GRI, whether it is IIRC, or whether it is anything which is very simple, say, for example, CDPA, etc., or merely, say, for example, we look at aligning our business with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because that in any case is getting introduced as the BRSR requirements. My simple submission is that you can start from anywhere if you haven't taken a look at this particular space, and you can mature over a period of time. Nobody can qualify that I have arrived in this space. My simple submission is, when do you want to see the mirror? If you are confident enough, you get up from your bed right in the morning and have a look at the mirror. If you believe that I am not ready, take a shower and then have a look at the mirror. If you still believe that I may need some more time before you enter into the chamber of your superior in the corner office, you can see, at least in the forces setup, I've seen it and experienced it myself, that you always look at how you are dressed, how you are looking, whether you are perfect or not before you enter into the chamber of, say, for example, your commanding officer and so on and so forth. So it is absolutely similar kind of learnings that you can apply when you are looking at environment, social, and governance. I can give you another example. Say a company is looking at a business target 10 years down the line. Let's assume a hypothetical target that there is a pharma company which believes that by 2030, I want to have 50% of diabetics market in 40 developing countries. Let this be a business target for a company. Can they do organic growth and can they reach this kind of target? The answer is a big no. What they have to do, they have to either go with the acquisition route, or they will have to go with collaborative method, wherein they can practically work with the local pharma companies, take their know-how or take their patents and the drug manufacturing techniques to them, and develop drugs and sell in the local market. But at the end of the day, do you see that ESG will have a role to play? The answer is a big yes, because whatever we do in terms of work within our four walls, in terms of what we do within our plants and so on and so forth, there is a perception around it. And there, obviously, the orthodox approach, I would still qualify this as an orthodox approach. When you look at the matrimonial alliances, you try and find a match which is of your level. And please don't take me wrong, if we apply the same principles on ESG, we will never go wrong, for the simple reason that if you look at an organization to have a partnership with them in a particular geography which is not perceived very good, it will be difficult for you to get an entry into the market. It will be difficult for you to have a foot in the door, and it will be difficult for you to grow in that particular geography. So ESG as a concept gives you a fair amount of understanding as to what is required to be done with respect to environment, what is required to be done with respect to society, what is required to be done in terms of improving our governance related outcomes, so that we can set up a precedence, we can set up something for anyone and everyone within our organization who is leading different functions. So whether it is the chief human resource officer, whether it is the sales head, whether it is the marketing head, whether it is the R&D team and so on and so forth, or maybe even the compliance officer for that matter, they know what is required to be done. They should also know what is coming their way in due course of time. So the learnings is something which is required to be applied over a period of time. And that is what ESG is all about. I would say India is somewhere in the middle of the journey. And if you as a student want to look at this space, you have multiple opportunities to begin with. If you look at the very first or the first 2 or 3 odd slides, I've talked about the impact of climate change. And therefore, if modeling is something which is of interest to you, you understand what is representative concentration pathways, you understand what is RCP 2.6, 4.56, and so on and so forth. Skill yourself into those areas, and you will find a lot of organizations, including the research bodies, opening doors for you. Corporate sector, in any case, is going to embark upon this journey, as it was alluded by one of the previous speakers, that, say, for example, 35% of companies have not even fair understanding of what they are trying to do within this space. So therefore, if, say, for example, let's assume BRSR itself, if we have to go into this space, I would say almost 400 to 500 opportunities just by having one person on board into these listed companies is something which is required. Balance 500 would have something already on board. They might have a small ESG team, or they might have a sustainability team, or maybe the CSR team working for them, those who have a fair amount of understanding of the concept. But the balance 500, they are absolutely nowhere on the radar. They would need people with your kind of skill sets, at least those who can become champion in due course of time. The material is available in public domain, so learning curve is going to be very fast you would not take more than, I would say, 6 months to have a deeper understanding of the sector in which you get a chance to work vis-a-vis the requirements within ESG space. And the integrated report or integrated disclosures is something which is future, whether we look at BRSR as the designated step to move into this direction, or whether we look at pure play integrated report, which is based upon IIRC or the International Integrated Reporting Council. One thing which is to be kept in mind, and I think it has been reiterated by multiple other speakers, that if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And if your competition is talking about your story, obviously they will pick up all the negative aspects of your business. And that is how they will build themselves a level above you. So it is practically stepping onto your shoulder. And that's where the ranking and rating related work is something which will provide you enough opportunities, I would say. We have seen domestic players coming into the ranking and rating business. So we have Edelweiss, we have CRISIL working in this space. And globally, we look at Morgan Stanley, Sustainalytics, EcoVadis, Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and many others, as you can see on your screen right now. They are all available and they are all ready to practically increase the bandwidth, offer multiple solutions to their clients, and therefore there are multiple opportunities for candidates with the right kind of skill sets into these organizations. I'll skip this slide. I may not even have, I've already overshot. Otherwise, I would have given you a little bit of understanding around how Morgan Stanley works. But I think you might have heard from the previous speakers that there are 7 levels going from CCC up to AAA. You can have a look at the Morgan Stanley website and figure out what are the things that go into this. Similarly, Sustainalytics is providing you rating based upon the total amount of risk which is presented, and they go from severe to negligible risk. And that's where the overall work is being carried out. You will still be able to find a lot of opportunities to look at how Sustainalytics operates and what are the key differences between Morgan Stanley versus Sustainalytics. Sustainalytics these days is getting a lot of business because you can hire them. So practically the way you hire your stat auditor, you can hire Sustainalytics to carry out a ranking and rating exercise for you. And that's where I think there would be opportunities in companies, those who are looking at ranking and rating improvement, to have an insider, to have an employee who is practically working across multiple segments of the business to figure out what are the areas of improvement and how to collaborate and resonate with respect to such requirements which are set out by the various ranking and rating platforms. This is about EcoVadis. Again, in the interest of time, there are details available in public domain, but these are, I would say, some 3 or 4 prominent players in the market, and you can hone your skills for any one of them or maybe 2 of them, and that should be enough for you to get an entry into the corporate space. Just to give you a flavor as to what is the difference between various platforms and ranking and rating, and therefore how you should select a particular ranking and rating platform or the disclosure platform is presented to you. Why SASB is something which is being liked by the investor community is visible on your screen, because it not just looks at the environment, social and governance aspects, it also looks at the financial aspect, because that's key to any investment decision. So if you look at SASB indexation, that is something which is being nurtured and babied by most of the investment sector players, which include SoftBank, BlackRock, KKR, Actis, and there are several others to name. And you can practically decide upon one structure, you can decide upon amalgamation of multiple structures. It depends upon you as to how you look at the ESG framework. It has to be sector specific also. So there are certain sector specific things. So say, for example, if you are a pharma sector player, you can look at ATM or access to medicine. If you are a textile sector player, you can look at Higgs index. We have Mr. Bhavsar here. He would be aware of Higgs index. So there are sector specific indexes also, which are definitely being of interest to various sectoral players, depending upon the ranking and rating and how they are placed among their peers and so on and so forth. I will skip all these slides. I think we are more or less done with the presentation. I just want to give you a flavor as to what are the best practices. So just look at the BRSR or the BRR disclosures by companies. I'm just giving you an example which is in public domain. Look at HPCL. They have also disclosed each and every aspect of 9 principles, except the human resource related information to a greater extent. And if you look at ITC, do you see a difference in the link? In case of ITC, everything is available at one single link. So when you are trying to be more transparent, when you are trying to improve upon your business processes, you can look at how innovatively web pages are getting designed. In case of Hindustan Petroleum, the information is available, but you'll have to dig it out. In case of ITC, you go to one single link and you will have information against all the 9 principles, which are earlier qualified as NVGs, and now they are qualified as national guidelines for responsible business conduct. So there were certain examples which I thought I should be presenting to you, but then I will just go to this last slide very quickly. This is something that we use when we are providing services to our clients or when we are looking at the opportunities. And I think if you look at this particular slide, in whatever capacity I am talking to this whole group, I would say this is fairly mature approach that can be deployed in this particular space. That first of all, you need to decide upon your aspirations. Once you have the aspirations in place, obviously you can look at the strategy development. The third important aspect would be to look at your capital, your operating and governance decisions. Go ahead, look at the enhancement and organizational capacities, because that is something which is required. And the fifth part is that you do a monitoring and disclosure of whatever you are doing over a period of time to maintain consistency, to build eminence, to have a pole position in the market. I think with this we can stop, and I don't know if there are any times for questions, but yeah, I'll take a pause here. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Respected sir, we apologize for reduction in presentation time due to constraints of the panel members as well as the audience. We're extremely grateful for your deep insights on how ESG has changed in the last decade and a brief on the sustainability best practices and disclosure benefits. The why, whom, where, what, and how of ESG information has been quite interesting. Mobilizing ESG for a sustainable future has never been more important than now. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Anubhuti Kumari to present vote of thanks.
Thank you, Nitha. On behalf of all the participants and the organizing committee present here, I extend a very hearty gratitude to the esteemed panel members for the graceful and experienced word. Mobilizing ESG for a sustainable future actually has never been important than now. Thank you for taking out your time from the busy schedule for this session. I'm sure that the participants must have took a lot of learning from this session. We, especially as a future sustainability professionals, really appreciate the immense understanding we got. We would definitely set up a precedence following your footsteps, sir and ma'am. I would like to conclude by saying sustainable reporting is indeed the future. Act responsible, think sustainable. Let's join the race together to make this world a better place. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I would now request all the panelists and Anju ma'am and our fellow students to please switch on their cameras for the group photograph. Due to the constraint of time, we could not actually take up questions, but we would definitely post up questions which were not answered to all the panel members, so that they could actually answer on their time. I would now request each and every panel members to please switch on their camera if possible. And I would request team members to please get ready for the photograph. Nita, if you could check your video is coming highlighted, if you could stop the highlighting.
One second.
Sorry for the delay, sir. Please bear with us. Just give us a second.
Anubhuti, there is a gallery view button. If you...
I have taken this screenshot.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, ma'am. Let's pose for the photograph once again. Thank you so much for joining us. We really had a wonderful time here. Thank you so much. The photograph was done, Sagar?
Yes, it's done.
Thank you. Thank you, Sagar.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we hope to see you again in your future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Anju ma'am. Bye.
Thanks a lot.